Recording in progress.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Hayward City Council. This meeting is being held in a hybrid manner, both in the council chambers, where I am with 3 of my fellow council members, and on a virtual platform, Zoom, where the other 3 members of our council are. And so welcome to all of you who are here, and I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order and ask that Councilmember Wahab, who is one of the members attending on Zoom, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. All rise. We do have the flag available to see
On
kind
Zoom.
of in the, yes, on Zoom. So let's begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, will you call the roll?
One more. Yes, good evening. Councilmember Andrews.
Councilmember Andrews is waiting to be admitted to the meeting.
All right, and let's go ahead and...
What? She hasn't-
All right, I believe she's in now. Councilmember Andrews.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Lamnan.
Present.
Councilmember Marquez.
Present.
Councilmember Salinas.
Present.
Councilmember Wahab.
Here.
Councilmember Cermeño.
I am present.
Thank you. Mayor Hallett.
Here.
Thank you.
That brings us to our closed session announcement. The council did meet in closed session this evening, and I'll turn this over to our city attorney, Mr. Lawson, to make the announcement.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The council convened in closed session tonight at 5:30 p.m. pursuant to posted notice with all members present. There were no public comments. Council discussed 2 matters related to property transactions, both as specifically identified on the posted agenda, and took no reportable action as to either matter. First matter, however, related to the site at 1034-1036 B Street is on the consent calendar number 1 for public action. The second matter related to Caltrans Route 238 Parcel Group 5 is on the consent calendar number 9 for number 7 for public action. The closed session adjourned at 6:05 p.m. Mayor, that's the report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Now that brings us to public comments on items that are otherwise not on the agenda this evening. And I'm going to turn this over to our city clerk, Ms. Lenz, to inform you if you are not attending here to inform you how you may make a public comment during this time, and to let us know if we have any.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you see my
Yes.
screen? Perfect. Thank you so much. So community members wishing to join the meeting via Zoom can follow the information on the first page of the agenda, which is also displayed on the screen right now. We have the meeting ID, passcode for individuals wishing to join the meeting. City council members and members of the public participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the raise hand icon. Members participating via teleconference wishing to speak should dial *9. In-person participants who wish to speak can scan the QR code located in the back of the chamber and complete the online speaker card, and their names will be added to the list of members wishing to speak. I know we have at least one person in the council chambers. And
Okay.
I believe that is all, Mayor. I believe we have one request to speak.
Yes, we do. I see that, and that would be Debbie Frederick, and she is in the council chamber, so you'll just come forward, and we welcome you here. You're one of the few people we've had actually come to our council chambers since we have been back in, since late September, so please go ahead.
So I'm Debbie Frederick.
You need to turn press the button. Yes, go ahead.
So greetings. I actually I was going to listen to the consent part from home, but I was out all day and couldn't make it home. And it is so special. This is off topic. This is not on any of our business items. I just am giving you community greetings. It is so great to be here in person and see your faces. And I thank you all for persevering through this pandemic. So that's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think we all appreciate that, and we appreciate your being here. We get kind of lonely sometimes, with nobody out there, except on Zoom or watching on the TV. And so thank you for coming and joining us tonight. So I think is there anyone else? I see there is another hand up.
Yes, that's correct. The last 3 digits, 341. Please go ahead. If you could please unmute. There you go.
Hello, am I recognized to speak?
Yes, and we can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Greetings, this is Velda Go from the University Campus Neighborhood Association. I'm assuming you all have my written public comment. Is that correct?
Yes. Did you yes, we have received that.
Okay. And so I won't recant what is in that document. I will add the verbal concern that I have about the 6-year campaign. I don't know what else to call it, that we've been having with the city of Hayward about the untenable circumstances on Campus Drive. And I am particularly concerned about Lincoln Landing, which is going to add 497 more residential properties that will directly feed from City Center Drive to 2nd right up to campus, and the addition of 80,500 retail spaces, which is going to add a considerable increased burden on Campus Drive. And so I am hoping that the meeting that I have on the 16th with Alex, Kelly, Jennifer Ott, and others will not yield the same results that we've had so far. Council, it has not been acceptable. It is basically placating moves, but it has had no effect whatsoever, and in fact has increased the danger on Campus Drive. And so I am hoping, we don't want short term, we don't want midterm. I think 6 years is long enough to come up with a solution for this residential street. We have construction trucks going up the street. It's not a construction zone. It's not a truck route. We have seen no one being ticketed, and you all know we can't put it on the police. They are underfunded. They told us they don't have the staff. So I am beseeching you to please listen. Let us not have another Wilma Chan on Campus Drive. Let us please listen. This is very dangerous. Let's not wait and be sorry until there is a disaster more than has been to date. Am I being clear? Am I being clear?
We can hear you, yes, thank you.
No, I'm not talking about here. I'm talking about comprehension. No response?
I'm sorry, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I hope you can understand me, because the actions from the city of Hayward so far has endangered our lives. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, now, are there any others that you're aware of, Madam City Clerk? Any other requests to speak?
Not aware, Mayor Halliday.
And,
Mayor, I have-
actually, yes, there is. Councilmember Wahab.
Thank you. I just want to kind of go back and forth with our city manager, Ms. Veldago, who just spoke. I met with her this weekend as well. She did send an email that I did ask our city clerk to add to our minutes, which our city clerk has confirmed that that's going to be the case. But to our city manager, is there any, just for the larger public to understand exactly kind of what's going on, any points that you'd like to kind of just bring up before that meeting happens later this week?
No, we've been working with Ms. Go and the neighborhood on the traffic improvements. We are working to hire a consultant that will be doing an evaluation. I know Ms. Go and some of the other neighborhood residents have proposed some ideas and solutions for Campus Drive, and the consultant will hopefully be evaluating those along with other potential ideas and options. So we look forward to that meeting on Thursday and further actions.
Thank you. And I just also want to state that, I do see the concern and the need also, including also the additional points. I know I've emailed it to you of Patty's comments regarding signage and much more. So I just wanted to state that on the record because I know that these larger group of residents are very concerned about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other requests to speak, we will move on to comments from our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick comments that I wanted to highlight. One of which, for those who subscribe to the STAC e-newsletter, want to call your attention to because it has some links to some webinars in the email and the article for more information. So on January 22nd, all of the city's electricity customers served by East Bay Community Energy will transition to a new product called Renewable 100. So energy that is 100% renewable, produced entirely from California solar and wind energy. And so all accounts, and by default, all accounts were enrolled in East Bay Community Energy unless residents and businesses chose to opt out. All accounts that are not enrolled in discount programs will automatically be enrolled in the Renewable 100 product in January. This will end up costing for a typical home about $4 to $7 more per month. But there's an option for customers to switch to East Bay Community Energy's less expensive Bright Choice product at any time. And then also customers can opt out of EBCE altogether and return to PG&E. And I just wanted to highlight for those customers who are on lower income qualifying discount programs such as CARE or FARA or Medical Baseline, they will automatically remain on the Bright Choice service. And we would encourage individuals who may need that assistance to reach out. City staff can help as well as East Bay Community Energy staff. And there is a list, there's a number of webinars that will be coming up for residential customers on Monday, December 20th from 4 to 5, and then again on Monday, January 17th from 4 to 5, and there'll be a webinar in Spanish on Thursday, January 20th from 4 to 5. There's also 2 commercial customer webinars, but I will just direct people's attention to that STAC newsletter article. It's also posted on the city's website for more information. And then my last comment, before I say happy holidays to everyone, is that we will be, City Hall will be closed, as well as non-emergency services during the last 2 weeks of December, as we've done in prior years. City Hall will be closed Monday, December 20th through Friday, December 31st, and we will resume regular hours on Monday, January 3rd. There will be no street sweeping operations Thursday, the 23rd of December, Friday, the 24th, Monday, December 27th, and then that will continue through Friday, December 31st. So a little break in the action for street sweeping. And then the library hours and operations will have some modifications, and you can go to the library's website to see what those are. And then if there are any emergent, sort of urgent but non-emergency issues that arise with water service or other city services, you can always call the non-emergency hotline at 510-293-7000. So just wanted to provide that information, and I wanted to wish everyone a happy holiday and a happy new year as this is our last meeting. So look forward to seeing everyone in 2022.
All right, thank you. I don't see that anyone has any questions about that. I will echo the city manager in reminding everyone of that, that number that goes into our dispatch center, but is not a 911 emergency for anything, especially if emergencies come up during the time that City Hall is closed, but something having to do with the street or some other function, water of the, or, water service of the city, anything like that, that number, 510-293-7000 will get you a response. They will be able to get a response from our staff to emergencies that come up during this period. Okay, and with that, we are now going to move on to our action items, starting with our consent calendar. And I want to say, first of all, that both Councilmember Andrews and I will be recusing ourselves from item number 9. I will be recusing myself from that item because I live very close. This item regards all of the Route 238 properties, and I live very close to one of them and have recused myself from action on that one. So I will be recusing myself from this item. And Councilmember Andrews?
Yes, I will be recusing myself from this item as a previous employer had interest in this development.
Okay. And so with that, I would ask, first of all, if anyone else would like to remove any of these items from the consent calendar. I'm not seeing any hands raised. Not seeing anyone in the audience wanting to do that. So I would call for a motion on items 1 through 8. Moved by Councilmember Salinas.
I'll second. Do we have any public comments on that?
Well, I wasn't seeing, oh, well, wait a minute, who's that? Councilmember Wahab?
Yeah, no worries. I was going to move the item, but Councilmember Salinas did.
Oh, I see, okay. No, but okay, Madam City Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item? I'm not seeing that there are any.
No, Madam Mayor. We had a request to speak on item number 7, but that was withdrawn.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, right. I forgot. Okay, so items 1 through 8, staff recommendation on items 1 through 8 has been moved by Councilmember Salinas, seconded by Councilmember Lamnin. Madam City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Andrews.
Aye.
Councilmember Lamnin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Salinas. Aye. Councilmember Wahab.
Yes, and congratulations to George, and thank you to Arzo for her years of service. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Cermeño.
Yes.
Mayor Halliday.
Yes, and Councilmember Wahab, Mayor Pro Tem Wahab was referring to Arzo Madavi, who is resigning after several years on the Community Services Commission and is being replaced by, I think it's George Syrup. Anyway, those items pass with a 7-0 vote. And now I'm going to turn this item number 9 over to still our Mayor Pro Tem Wahab, since the new Mayor Pro Tem Lamnin will not take over until the first of the year. So in her probably maybe last official duty as Mayor Pro Tem Wahab.
Thank you. We will be reviewing consent item number 9. Do we do public comments?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, if you want to announce that.
I don't see anybody from this side.
Yeah, currently, I don't see any requests to speak for item number 9.
Would any council members like to speak on this item? All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move consent item number 9, Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilmember Marquez moves the item. Do we have a second?
Second. Cermeño.
Councilmember Zermeño seconds. Can we have a roll call vote?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Lamnin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Salinas. Councilmember Cermeño.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wahab.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And we have Councilmember Andrews abstaining and Mayor Halliday abstaining.
And the motion passes with 5 ayes. Thank you. Handing it back over to our mayor.
Thank you for that. Okay. And I'll just, for the public, I'll just say that when we're recusing ourselves from consent items, we don't actually have to leave the room. So since there's not likely to be a lot of discussion, so that's why I stayed in the room. But thank you for that. And then we'll now move on to item number 10, which is a public hearing this evening on an appeal of the Planning Commission denial to develop a new approximately 116,844 square foot industrial building for U-Haul at 4150 Point Eden Way. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn this over first to Assistant City Manager Ott.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and I'm going to turn this over to Acting Principal Planner Leah Schmidt, who's on the virtual, oh, this is the wrong presentation. And so she'll go ahead and present on this item. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. It's good to see you tonight. I'm going to share my screen and show you a presentation. Okay, here we go. So this is a public hearing related to a site plan review and historic resources demolition permit that did go before the Planning Commission in July earlier this year. The Planning Commission voted to deny the project and the applicant appealed that denial. So the matter is before you tonight. So quickly, I'm just going to run through what my presentation is going to entail. I'm going to give you a brief background on the project, describe the existing conditions, the proposed project. We'll go over the CEQA analysis, which is a little bit more complex than usual because it included an environmental impact report, describe the findings, conditions, and then staff's recommendation. So a bit on the background. The project initially came in February 2019. The staff, as well as the CEDC, looked at the project and gave some pretty significant feedback. The applicant went back to the drawing board and took almost about a year to redesign the site. It went from 2 buildings to 1 building. They got rid of a U-Haul maintenance yard. So there were some pretty significant changes. Following resubmittal of the new application, which is generally the one you see before you, staff worked with a consultant to prepare an environmental impact report on the project. It was released for a mandatory 45-day public review period from April to end of May earlier this year, 2021. In July, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the project, and the public hearing, typically site plan review and a historic resources demolition permit could potentially be handled administratively, although the demolition permit is something the Planning Commission should look at. In addition, it went to the Planning Commission because of the EIR and the fact that impacts related to cultural resources could not be mitigated to a level of less than significant. So the Planning Commission was asked to look at the site plan review application, the demolition permit, and the EIR, and to adopt a statement of overriding considerations. The Planning Commission denied the project on several grounds. Generally, the discussion was around the fact that the project, the Commission felt, was not consistent with city goals related to advancing a high-tech advanced manufacturing sector in the industrial district. There was some discussion that the site is vulnerable to sea level rise because it is at the western edge of the city, and that the project wouldn't generate a significant amount of sales tax or high quality jobs to offset the environmental costs that were disclosed in the EIR. So overall, the commission felt that they could not adopt that statement of overriding considerations, denied the project. The applicant appealed the project and didn't really change it, but offered clarifying information that I'll go over, that I prepared in the staff report, and that we'll go over tonight. So briefly, the proposed project includes an eastern component and a western component. The development will occur on the eastern component, which is shown on the right side of the screen here and outlined in yellow. It's about 6.8 acres, so almost 7 acres. The western component is about 32 acres. It is a part of the project in that the applicant owns the land. However, it will remain undeveloped throughout in perpetuity. And here's a close-up of that eastern component, the about 7 acre site. It's outlined in yellow, and the red line that meanders from Point Eden Way and then down and then along going back east is the Bay Trail. The Bay Trail, as you can see currently in the current alignment, runs between the project site, which is generally undeveloped right now, and then an industrial site. So in the new development, it would run between 2 industrial properties. The site is generally vacant except for a structure, which you can see sort of right at the top of the site. It's about 12,300 square foot existing structure that was previously used as a salt production plant for the Oliver Brothers Salt Company that operated in the first half of the 20th century. The structure is dilapidated and has been vandalized and used as squatters over the past several years. However, it is listed on the State Register of Historic Resources due to the importance of the history of salt mining and factory work in this area, and that occurred particularly on this site. As you can see, State Route 92 runs along the northern part of the site, and then the site is generally surrounded by baylands, except for on the east, which is industrial development. And here's a picture of the historic structure. Here's a picture of the salt flats that are part of that 32 acre preserve. And then here's some pictures of the Bay Trail. On the left, what you see is the bridge coming down to Point Eden, and then where it curves and turns between the 2 properties. So I'm going to describe the proposed project. It would involve construction of a new industrial building. The building would be about 117,000 square feet. 114,000 square feet of that would be used as a warehouse, and about 2,700 square feet up at the front of the building would be used as an office. The office space and the warehouse would house the U-Haul corporate offices, and it would employ between 35 to 50 people at the beginning and then potentially grow to about 75 people. This was one of the clarifying points that the applicant pointed out, was that in staff's analysis, we had estimated only about 25 to 35 people would work there. The warehouse portion of the building would house U-Haul storage pods, materials, and trucks. However, it wouldn't be a site where people would go rent trucks. It would really be used as a corporate headquarters. Access to the site would be up here at the top from Point Eden Way. And as you can see, the circulation would go around the building. There would be 79 parking stalls that would be sort of spread across the entire site, and about 60% of the site would be landscaped. Here's a little detail of an employee amenity that would be located up at the front of the building. There's meandering pathways. There would be shaded structures for employees to eat. And then, as you can see, there would be some dense sort of layered landscaping up at the front. There would also be sort of concrete score work that would be sort of integral into the entrance of the building. And then here are elevations of the proposed building. This is on the top is the front elevation facing State Route 92. As you can see, there would be sort of varying roof lines. There would be a glass enclosed cube that would be at the front of the building. That's where the office would be located. The applicant is proposing sort of varying colors and materials to break up the massing of the building, in addition to those building pop outs and pulling back on the sides. The architecture also features, particularly on the areas that front the future Bay Trail and front the Baylands and front State Route 92, basically the most visible parts of the site, would have this sort of like integral artistic motifs, birds, sculptures that would be on the side of the building, as well as these these green vertical elements that would be mimicking wildlife and grasses. And that the interior of the facing building wouldn't be as decorated because it wouldn't be visible from any public right of way. And here's a rendering of that glass enclosed front office area. As part of the project does include a realignment of the Bay Trail. As I showed you earlier, the Bay Trail currently runs between the two industrial sites. As part of the proposed project, the applicant would work with East Bay Regional Park District to realign the trail to go along the orange and the blue pathways shown on this site. So the applicant would basically do a land swap and in exchange for the land shown in green, where they would put sort of stormwater and landscaping, they would pull that Bay Trail out closer to the bay for views of the bay, and it would be sort of elevated up and then go around the building and then meet up with the current alignment. So as I described earlier in the project, the CEQA analysis was complex on this site. Pretty early on, and as part of earlier, I think in the background report I described, there have been several attempts and applications, attempts to develop the site, and people have walked away from it because of the complexity of the environmental analysis, and specifically the fact that it does have a designated historic resource on it. So no matter what happens, that's a significant impact. So understanding that there were going to be some, in addition to the biological resources, there are wetlands, there's a lot of complexity. So understanding that that was going to be required, the city did issue a notice of preparation of an environmental impact report with an initial study. And that initial study found that there would be impacts in areas of biological resources, cultural resources, hazards, transportation, and tribal cultural resources, and found less than significant impacts in all the other areas. As I described earlier, there was a 45-day public review. The draft EIR included not only sort of analysis on those impact areas I described, which is something that you guys typically see, but also included other sections that are really specific to EIRs. It included discussion about growth inducement, irreversible environmental impacts, and in this case, it also included a statement of significant and unavoidable impacts. And those impacts were related to cultural resources. The other impact areas, biological resources, hazards, transportation, tribal cultural resources, all could be mitigated to a level of less than significant, but cultural resources with the demolition of that building could not be mitigated. It can be reduced through mitigation measures, and the last bullet point on the slide kind of describes that. Some of the mitigation measures that the consultants recommended and that are going to be included in the project would be to document the existing structure and then to install an interpretive display at the site to commemorate the historic use. And my understanding, the applicant said that they would also try to reuse as many of the wooden materials on the site on the building or as decorations, maybe as trellises on the site, but it wouldn't remain as is. Therefore, the impact remains significant and unavoidable. The EIR did include alternatives. It included a no project alternative, reduced development, which kind of pulled the development away from the historic resource, and then an alternative sites analysis. The environmentally superior alternative was no build, just leave it as is, followed by alternative sites alternatives. However, those alternatives wouldn't meet all the goals of the project. And some of the goals, like some of the sites were just too small. They wouldn't result in sort of redevelopment of a gateway site that's highly visible, leading into the city. It would leave a dilapidated structure standing there. In addition, there are other improvements generally, such as preservation of that 32-acre area that would be held in conservation. The city received 5 comment letters on the draft EIR. All those letters and responses to those comments become the final EIR. And that final EIR was posted to the city's website in accordance with state law on June 25th. The city council, if the council wants to approve the project, then you must adopt a statement of overriding considerations related to the loss of the historic structure. That's included in the resolution. And staff does believe that removal, and this is outlined in the statement of overriding considerations, that removal of the structure would eliminate a dilapidated and unsafe structure. It would result in development of a currently underutilized site at a gateway entrance to the city, and it would result in establishment of the preserve in the Western Baylands. So I described in the staff report and earlier in this presentation why the Planning Commission felt that the benefits of the project did not outweigh the costs. Staff's findings that were presented to the Planning Commission are the same findings that will be presented to the City Council. The project as proposed is consistent with general plan goals and policies related to increasing jobs and enhancing the visual character of a gateway site. It also is consistent with the zoning regulations that do allow for warehouses in industrially zoned land. There is not, even though there are sort of advanced tech, high tech is prioritized and would be a use that would be wholeheartedly consistent with every goal and policy and vision for the site. Warehousing was recognized as a use and that is appropriate in the industrial lands, and that is what the applicant is proposing. In addition, staff believes that the project, the glass fronted building really goes far in terms of like trying to have a presence on State Route 92. It doesn't look like a typical warehouse. It incorporates artistic elements. And it would result in an increase in property taxes because of the investment in the site, but it would also signal new investment to people passing by. The project would result in realignment of the Bay Trail and an improvement of that. As you saw in earlier pictures, it's just a gravel path now, so it'd be a real improvement. They'd, put in paving, they'd have nice fencing, they'd, do other improvements, and the structure in Bay Trail would be located above the floodplain. You may remember that I mentioned that some discussion was had about sea level rise and impacts related to that. Well, there is some evidence that the parking lot in some circumstances like king tides, like probably 30 years into the future, could result in inundation. However, the building and other improvements would not experience inundation. So it's actually consistent with the floodplain ordinance. So there are a number of conditions of approval all outlined in the resolution. Some really significant ones include that realignment and design of the Bay Trail are subject to East Bay Regional Park District approval. I know the applicant's been working with them since the beginning of the project. In addition, based on comments that I received, that the lights in the building would be turned off at night in recognition of the fact that this site is at the edge of the Baylands and would spill over lighting, or lighting from inside would impact wildlife around there. That the proposed 32-acre preserve will be held as a conservation easement, and all the mitigation measures that were outlined in the EIR are included as conditions of approval of the project. So with that, staff does recommend that the City Council overturn the commission denial, approve site plan review and historic resources demolition permit for the proposed project, certify the EIR and related findings, adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting plan and the statement of overriding considerations that were prepared for the project. There was some correspondence received after the publication of the staff report. All those emails and that written correspondence was provided to the council and posted by the city clerk earlier this evening. There were probably 17 separate emails. All but one were in support of the project. I know that the applicant is here tonight and would love to have a moment to speak to you. In addition, we have the CEQA consultant and the applicant's entire team available to answer questions, and that concludes the presentation.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'm going to ask if council members have any questions. Please raise your hand if you have any questions you want to ask right now. Councilmember Zermeño.
So it didn't show up in your screen?
I'm sorry, let's see.
Oh.
No, actually, your name doesn't show up on the screen, but go ahead.
Thank you for the report, wherever you are. 3 quick questions. See, one is, who owns the salt building, and are there any plans for it for the future?
The applicant does own the property and owns the building on the site.
All right, so, and obviously there are no plans for it. Okay, got it. It's, the staff report says, warehouse for U-Haul corporate headquarters. What kind of material will be stored there as a warehouse? Do we know?
Probably provide a bit more information.
Leah, we're not hearing you, Ms. Schmidt.
When I think warehouse, I think of storing materials.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
I'm not hearing her.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So my understanding is that the warehouse would be used to store mainly pods, storage pods, that sometimes people call in. If they're moving, they have the pods brought out to their house, and you put all the stuff into the pod, and the pod gets moved to a new location. In addition, they would store just general materials and trucks, but the applicant could provide more information as well if they have more to add.
Okay, thank you. And then one of the last notes says lights off in the evening. Are there any worry that it might invite crime, especially since the building is way off at the end of the industrial area? Any thoughts about that?
That's a really good point. Honestly, based on comments that I received from staff that work out at the regional, level in the East Bay Regional Park District, what I heard was that typically those industrial buildings that go out at the edge of the Baylands and then stay lit up all night actually have impacts on the wildlife that live there. And I received comments that we should consider adding conditions of approval to limit the lighting. I'm sure the applicant could add security lighting that's much more, kind of focused at the building, ensuring that it doesn't spill out, that the light doesn't, shine out and onto the Baylands surrounding the site.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lamnon.
Thank you. Thank you for the work on this. I wanted to disclose that I did meet with the applicant at the site. And also wanted to ask, what is, just in a nutshell, what is the community benefit in moving the trail? This may have been covered in the report, but I apologize that I'm not quite grasping it.
Basically, the current alignment has it going between it would have it going between 2 industrial buildings. So basically moving it out to the edge would place it kind of closer to the bay. It's the Bay Trail. It would have views of the bay, and it would just connect people closer to that sort of open space, rather than having someone move between 2 buildings. If it's a matter of distance, then I guess no, it isn't better because it's making that alignment longer. However, from a quality perspective, it's in staff's opinion, it was a better alternative to going between the 2 industrial buildings and potentially having like walls or fences on both sides and creating a corridor there.
Okay. Now I appreciate that. What I'm sort of struggling with here is the adjacency to the 92. And I know from the response I received from a question I submitted about typically the request is to put, for instance, trees and vegetation between a trail and a property. But is there any reason that that East Bay Regional Parks couldn't work with the applicant to see about some vegetation instead along the 92 to kind of muffle? It's loud there along the 92 side. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's why I'm asking.
Absolutely. I think that it would be something that the applicant could definitely work with East Bay Regional.
Ms. Schmidt, we're having trouble hearing you again.
Okay.
I don't think you're muted, but yeah.
Muted. Okay. I'm not sure. Could be.
That's a little better.
Okay. I think that's something that the East Bay Regional Park District could work with the applicant to split the trees. The question is just having enough space for a wide path with the circulation and the landscaping. But I can let maybe the architect or the applicant could speak about the amount of space that's there. I know they have layers of trees, so maybe having one of the layers on the State Route 92 side of the pathway and then having it on the interior side would work as well.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question is, I know it came up in the Planning Commission about having a welcome to Hayward kind of sign there. And I know there's also discussion of community engagement, but just from having a sign happen, it's not currently a condition. Is that something that could be conditioned, or is that, I know signs can get really complicated really fast. So any insights about adding that to the project?
Not sure if you can hear me. I'm
Yes.
hoping you can. Okay. It was a discussion at the Planning Commission, and it was something the applicant did say that they would do. However, without it would have been a late ad. It was not really thought about. I know the applicant is willing to work with the city. I think that they're willing to say they'll set aside land, and I'll let them speak for themselves. That's what they told me. But staff didn't want to make that recommendation because there was also significant concerns at the Planning Commission about the city coming in and putting something somewhere without having any community engagement. So it was something that was flagged for discussion maybe at the council level. And I actually thought that maybe you could talk to the applicant and come up with a mutually agreeable solution at this level.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Schmidt, for your presentation. Can you just help me understand, is this project agreeing to implement measures to mitigate sea level rise, or is it something that they're open to in the future? Wasn't quite clear on the staff report what they're willing to do at this stage and what they're considering for the future.
Mm-hmm. So the project right now is, it is elevating the pad of the building and the bay trail above the projected sea level rise. It is consistent with the floodplain ordinance. It's outside of our projected sea level rise. I actually know like this much about it. You know more than I do about this, and also there are other experts. So I'm sure people can clarify and add more information. But my understanding is yes, the improvements are up and out of that. However, the parking lot may experience inundation. The applicant is in the future, like 30 years in the future, enduring king tide. So it'd be infrequent potential. I put in the staff report that the applicant is also, would be open to looking at ways to minimize and mitigate that, but it wasn't analyzed in the staff report because it wasn't inconsistent with state law and it wasn't inconsistent with our ordinances. So that's why it may have seemed a little bit unclear.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then in the staff report, there's mention that Center Point Properties went to the Economic Development Committee, I believe in May of 2017, and they ultimately walked away from the site. And then this applicant came back in, I think 2019. But I believe in your presentation, you also mentioned other interested parties have walked away. Do we have a sense of how many? Just kind of want to understand how many potential owners have vetted this project for viability.
Okay. What I can tell you about is what I know, and I also, there are people who've been working on this team and on this site for 15 years, so they could probably give you a longer list. I know of at least one other development permit application that came in prior to the center point, and was actually a planning application, 2016, 2015, 2016, and they, the project wasn't very good. Staff wasn't really inclined to support it anyway, and said that we wanted to see a much better design, and they had to do the environmental analysis, and they walked away. Following that, Centerpoint showed interest, and then the site was sold at auction, and the applicant purchased it.
Okay, and then there was specific comments and feedback provided at the most recent Economic Development Committee meeting, and is it my understanding, is it correct that staff takes that information, and once the applicant updates their application, are they looking at the information that was provided to this owner during that meeting to see if they were willing to make any changes? Like, how much of that is like factored in once they go through the actual application process?
It's significant. The project did go to CEDC, and I think I outlined some of the comments, which were the design was lackluster at best. It couldn't be supported. The use was not ideal. However, there was some discussion that if the building was spectacular, then the use was acceptable. And then some other comments, and staff communicated all of those comments and went through. Now, out of 6 things, they can't change their use. The use is the use. And so they decided, despite some of the comments that were heard at the time, like, we want to see advanced, manufacturing and high tech, to move forward with the proposed development.
Okay. And do we know, for the most part, the team that presented at the Economic Development Committee meeting, is that the same team that is still with U-Haul, or have the main players changed? Because sometimes that happens with large companies, but has it remained pretty consistent?
No, the applicant changed.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, staff, for your presentation. And just wanted to have an idea, a little bit more of an idea of how we're considering projects like these in this area. And are we flagging existing businesses about what's happening with the shoreline? Because I saw there was a lot of comments from Planning Commission regarding that, and I understand this project has mitigating factors, except for the cultural resources. But just curious to know if we're doing that, and what's the cutoff point in us developing in these areas?
So I do believe that it wasn't I didn't work on the sea level rise master plan, but I do believe there was engagement of the business owners along there, particularly ones that would be impacted by future sea level rise. This site is pretty much undeveloped, so there was no one to really engage, obviously, on this site at the time. But the applicant was made aware of the master plan moving through the city council process. It's important to note that the master plan includes goals and policies. There's not really any ordinances or laws. There's our floodplain ordinance, and the proposed project is consistent with the floodplain ordinance. But yes, the information is provided to applicants, particularly ones that will experience inundation.
Okay. And going back to the conversations about the welcoming sign, and just wanted to know if the applicant could, if they're still considering it, if they can consider it. I agree that well, I don't want to make comment, but I just want to hear if there was any other opportunities that they were offering other than this public art. That, I mean, the public art is one thing, but is something that's going to be a marker for the city is another. Just wanted to know if we can dig deeper into that, if that's possible.
Absolutely. I think the applicant applicant is more than willing to discuss that, the location, investment, like they'll speak for themselves. As staff's wasn't coming out of the planning commission, there was a denial, so there wasn't a negotiation to be had really about those improvements.
Okay, great. And is there was there any discussion with HARD or any partnerships with East Bay Regional regarding working with the parks in this area to maybe do some learning opportunities? And if there's any other concerns from them, maybe we can see what's possible.
Absolutely. The applicant worked with East Bay Regional Park District from the beginning. In addition, I reached out to them and communicated with them numerous times. In addition to the improvements along the trail, there would be like an interpretive display that would talk about the salt processing that occurred on the site.
Yeah,
historical.
I heard that.
But there's not really a park. It'd be just the trail improvements and then the landscaping installed as part of the project and the employee amenities.
Okay. Yeah, I heard you say that. I was just wondering more if there's like more concern about the actual project and working with them and figuring out if they didn't have any other concerns.
No concerns in support of the project.
Okay. All right. Well, I think those are all the questions I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Don't see any other hands raised from council. I'm going to open public comment on this, and I think we have to, someone, first of all, is it Mr. Owen is the representative of the applicant, correct, Ms. Schmidt?
That is correct.
And he's with us on Zoom or, yeah, in that way. And then, so Madam City Clerk, we have a public speaker. Oh, we have a few public speakers. Okay. Tony Munoz. I just want to say that I would like to call the applicant, but I'd like to wait until we've had the council questions. Now we're going to have public comment so that then, Mr. Owen, you can answer any questions that come up during public comment as well. So, Tony Munoz, is he on Zoom or in the, okay.
Zoom.
You got him on?
Yes.
Yes. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Tony Munoz. I am a representative for the NorCal Carpenters Union, and I'm also here on behalf of the Alameda County Building Trades. Here in opposition to this project. You know, we would like to see a project. It's going to benefit the community. It's going to benefit the city of Hayward. We would like to see some labor standards and also a job that's going to create opportunities for apprentices. You know, it's going to be the workforce of our future. We did have the opportunity, you know, to meet up with the folks from U-Haul a few months ago, you know, but communication has since stopped. As of right now, we ask that you delay this project so that we can attempt to work on an agreement that will benefit all parties on this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Justin V., who is here with us in council chambers. No, over here, you can, yeah. And press the button on the bottom to turn the red light. Yeah, there you go.
Red? Okay, I gotcha. Council members, I'd like to, I'm not against or for the project, but I would like to make a suggestion. If you're going to have walkways and try to mitigate shoreline sea level rise, I would like to talk about pervious concrete, because pervious concrete can absorb 4 liters of water per minute, and I've seen it in action. It just literally a semi dumped all its water, and in seconds the concrete was just vanished. And I mean, not the concrete, the water vanished. And another solution to the sea level rise is to build marshes, but you guys want a walkway. And another possibility is to have an oyster farm in the sea, but there needs to be a walkway. So the solution I have is pervious concrete, and I would suggest you guys look into it. I've done construction for 3 years, some of the best years of my life, and I feel for the guy that just talked about apprenticeship and stuff like that, so I understand where he's coming from. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I hope that was understood by Mr. Owen, and he can comment on that. Okay, and next we have Karen High. I believe must be on Zoom.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. Mayor Halliday and City Council members, my name is Karen High. I'm with Citizens Committee to Complete the Refuge and Ohlone Audubon Society. I want to commend the City Council and Hayward for what they've been doing on the Hayward Shoreline Master Plan that shows true enlightenment and foresight in an era of sea level rise. And so I really want to give you credit there. I'd also like to express my appreciation of the thoughtful comments of the Planning Commission members as they grappled with the decision of whether to recommend approval or denial of this project. Their statements really do reflect an understanding of the threats and challenges posed by sea level rise to our communities and to the habitats of the bay. The documents in the master plan clearly show this site will be threatened by sea level rise, and concerns shouldn't just be limited to sea level rise. There's also the threat of stormwater, and as we saw in October, storms are getting flashier and more intense. If you look at Adapting to Rising Tides Explorer map, the entire site could be inundated, almost the entire site, with 12 inches of sea level rise in a 50-year storm. But of another concern I haven't mentioned is groundwater rise. And in the hazards mapping of Our Coasts, Our Future website, they show that at roughly 10 inches of sea level rise, portions of the site could also be subject to emergent water tables. And where that comes in, if you will think, you may not have seen our comments, but we commented on the hazards and hazardous materials section in our EIR comments. And there's talk about displacement piers and that they'll be designed in a way to prevent creating a preferential pathway between shallow groundwater and deeper groundwater. Well, if groundwater rise is occurring, what assurances do we have that things like benzene will be restricted and not pose a threat to the bay or to people who work in the development? Also, in our comments, we commented about the glass and impacts to bird collisions. And we don't feel that the biological impacts have been mitigated to a less than significant level. And also they keep talking about a preserve, but what is meant by a preserve? Is it going to be left as it is? Is it going to be remediated to remove the high salt concentrations? There are a lot of questions, and so I urge you to uphold the denial.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and next we have Tomiko Ha. Is he, that he was on the list, but I don't see him now.
Hello.
Hello? Yes, go ahead.
Hi.
Her, sorry.
Hello, my name is Tomoko Ha. I know I only see a picture of me, but I am on the camera. So I am a Castro Valley resident, and I have been commuting with the San Mateo Hayward Bridge on a regular basis. And as someone who's a commuter, and when I first found out about this project, I found it to be exciting, even though I may not know all the details of it. But what I'm like to hear more from people is how we can make a place around that area welcoming for people who are crossing the bridge every time they cross. And also that highway is also a place where even people from across the world come to visit this area, and how we could also highlight the East Bay and the South Alameda County and the East Bay. And because we have so many wonderful gems here in this area, and this could be one of the gateways for people to explore more in the area and also provide economic development. And what I am hearing is a lot of other factors that come in the way, where there are environmental issues, other issues that with questions that are being revealed, and how we could make all these things happen or come to agreement. Because one thing that, as someone's a commuter, I would love to come back to the East Bay and have something that's exciting to see as well. Thank you, and thank you everyone for your viewpoints about this. And I hope that this also brings in more conversations to the public, especially for commuters who also utilize the bridge in that area. And I know that this area also impacts the local community, and it also is exciting for people to hear about who utilize that facility. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm not seeing that we have any other speakers, Madam City Clerk.
Yes,
seeing
Madam
any
Mayor,
more?
we have another speaker, Tom
Oh,
Ferreira.
Tom Ferreira, okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Mayor. Hi, City Council. Just wanted to comment on this bridge. I've gone over that bridge quite a few times. And going over that bridge, I think the plan going around the building is actually a good one. Instead of crossing the driveway when you come off the bridge, you go around the long route. And I was wondering if there's a possibility of having some maybe solar lighting on the trail as you're coming into the city. People could see that. It would look nice and be more inviting for when the lights go down, when the sun goes down in the evening. And that's my comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other requests to speak from the public?
No, Madam Mayor, I'm not aware of anyone else.
Okay, then I'm going to now go to Mr. Owen, to the applicant, to, if you like, make a presentation and respond to the some of the questions that were raised. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to say that I neglected to myself ask or mention an interest of mine in this property, that it does have historic value, as been said. And I will acknowledge that I also met with the applicant, not on the site. I met on Zoom with the applicant a few weeks ago, I think. And it is a historic site in terms of the original, or not original use of the property, but an early use of the property in the salt industry in Hayward. And there were elements of that building that have been taken down that were particularly of note historically. And I understand the applicant, from the applicant, that they have, it's some kind of a screw that was used in the salt manufacturing process. And we talked about the possibility of featuring that somewhere. So I just wondered if that was still a possibility of having something. We've talked about a welcome to Hayward sign, which is a great idea, but also something that really does illuminate that historical use of the site. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Mr. Owen for comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, council members, for your time this evening. As we discussed in our meeting, Ms. Mayor, yes, we are going to be using, it's a salt grinding screw. We plan on using it in a showcase inside the building to preserve really the historical history of the site. That site goes way back to the 1930s, and Oliver Salt Company was a part of Hayward from a very, very, very long time. There's a lot of history in the city of Hayward. As far as our comments that were just made, the gentleman that brought up the concrete, I'm going to look into that. That sounds like a great idea to soak up all the water. I'll look into that, talk with the East Bay Parks Regional Department to see if that's going to be possible. We talked about as well, a few council members brought up the sign, the Welcome to Hayward sign, absolutely something we're willing to do in whichever way the city and or council would like. And we had this conversation with Planning Commission, and it was brought up, and there was some concern that the community wouldn't have any input on it. It would be on Hayward, U-Haul's land. However, anyone would like, we're open to it. Even if it's maybe an investment on a sign, maybe a little down the road or something like that, we're definitely open to it. But we understand it's a prime location where we're at for a nice Welcome to Hayward sign. The comment from Mr. Munoz regarding labor, yes, we did meet a couple months ago. We have not come to agreement yet. We do plan on using labor on the site. We just not have yet come to an agreement. I will be meeting with them in the future if we are approved. It's just, at this point, we haven't come to an agreement. I would like to real quick share my screen. I'm just going to show you a quick video. Sorry, just one moment. I apologize, it's not letting me share that. My apologies there. Back to just what I was talking about. I do want to thank city staff. It's been a lot of work that's gone into this project, a lot of hours and time spent on this. I want to thank my entire team and agencies that's been involved. It'd take me all night to thank everybody that's been a part of this. My goal and U-Haul's goal here is to create a gateway welcome to Hayward building for U-Haul that we can be proud of, as well as that the city of Hayward can be proud of as well. We understand that the site is sensitive. Environmental impacts is huge here. Also, relocating the Bay Trail is a big topic, and some people like it, some people don't. We think relocating it to the outside improves it, improves the enjoyment of walking on the trail. You're viewing the bay. It is the Bay Trail. I do plan on relocating my regional offices here. I will be based out of this location. This will be my home base, and I would be super excited to be here. This would be huge for me. It'd be one of the marquee stores in U-Haul at this location. I do want to be very clear. We're not storing U-Haul trucks here. This is not a normal U-Haul facility. We're not going to have any kind of U-Haul trucks. We are storing our U-boxes, which are the moving boxes. We're not going to have any storage of any kind of trucks. So I just want to be clear on that, just so that's not any kind of confusion there. I believe, also want to be clear, the upfront portion, and you guys saw the picture, the upfront portion is our main office. And just in the office alone, we're going to have 25 to 30 employees. That's without even the warehouses. We discussed, it was thought it was going to be 25 to 30 employees total. It's going to be more to 35 to 50 to start, upwards of 75. I do also want to comment, U-Haul has been a part of Hayward, City of Hayward. We're proud to say this since 1975 for our location down on Jackson Street. We would just want to continue our long history on the site. I thank you for all your time. I apologize I couldn't share the video. I'm not sure what happened there. I can't share that with people privately. I know it's shown a few council members and the mayor, but I thank you for your time. And if anyone got any questions, please raise your hand.
I'm sorry technology failed us here tonight with the video, but anyway, thank you for your comments. And with that, I'm going to go to council members, and I'll go first to Council Member Zermeño.
Thank you, and this is for Mr. Owen, I believe. Tell me a little bit more about, let's see, local hires, union partnerships, prevailing wage, PLAs, discussions with our unions. Could you elaborate a little bit, please, on that?
Yeah, so I met with them initially. We just had a brief conversation about the project. Like I said, we haven't come to an agreement yet. I do plan on using them as a large part of the portion of my project. I know initially right now I've got scheduled to sign up. We haven't reached out to everybody just yet, but we're going to be using at minimum Ironworkers Union, the Plumbers Union, Electrical Union, the Sprinklers and Fitters Union, Sheet Metal Union, and Laborers Union as well. That's what we've got penciled in right now. This is not final. Like I said, we're still going to be having conversations if it is approved. And I apologize. One thing I do want to mention before I forget, Ms. Mayor, we actually did meet with the Historical Society as you requested, and they are looking forward to working with us on a, on a little piece that will give us a little history on the site.
And I also need to disclose that I did Zoom with them. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Is that it, Councilmember Zermania? I'll go next to Councilmember Wahab and then to Councilmember Salinas. Councilmember Wahab?
Thank you. For full disclosure, I did meet several months ago via Zoom as well, so Councilmember Zermania as well. To Councilmember Zermania's point about kind of because it's far back, it is potentially storing some type of material, even temporarily, and obviously security. And, we've been seeing kind of like the burglaries and so forth happening in just random sites throughout the Bay Area. That is concerning for me. So number one is, is there going to be security features there? Just because, if you could answer that, Mr. Owen.
Absolutely, it will be security features on site, cameras and security lighting. I don't want to affect any of the wildlife, so I'll make sure I stay in the parameters there.
What about like a security officer of some sort?
I do have a security officer at my current regional office, and that is something I can do on this site as well.
Okay.
I haven't gotten that far ahead, but sorry, go ahead.
Okay. And then my next concern is I understand the concept of having lights, but I agree with staff in the sense that the lights have to be turned off for the animals because my main concern is because it is so incredibly close to the shoreline, if you will, that it kind of disturbs. Councilmember Lamnin brought this up. I don't remember when, but Councilmember Lamnin, you can definitely talk about this topic, but basically having lights, not disturb kind of the natural light, if you will. I think that's a very important concept more on this side of the Hayward area, especially the closer we are to these natural habitats of these animals and so forth. So that is of concern. I don't think that we have enough, just even with and I know you've changed and you've worked very hard to kind of improve this project from the denial of the Planning Commission till now, but I don't think that we're still seeing what we need to see from the environmental piece. I personally don't feel that way. I don't feel super confident. And I agree with the sign. I appreciate, your effort and even your investment in that. And then as far as our labor piece, having a conversation several months ago and not having any follow-up conversations and nothing in writing, no agreement, I'm afraid that if we approve today, there is really no reason for you to move into an agreement. So I am concerned about that. I do agree with delaying this for a little bit while longer until some of these things are improved further. I would love, again, I'm very supportive of businesses coming into Hayward, especially longstanding businesses that can remain in Hayward and so forth. And I've said this many times. I just don't think that this particular project is up to par just yet. So I do still have significantly my priorities. Genuinely, the environmental impacts is the biggest one. And I think that's going to be the most costly one. I think I shared some of my concerns with you in the past as well. I genuinely think that we're not there yet. So I do want to highlight that. And I would suggest also talking to other environmental groups to get even some more feedback. And then again, the conversations with our working people, this Hayward is very much a working people's town. And, we want to make sure we give everybody opportunities. And as far as that, I think that the sign is great. I think you guys are going to come up with something nice. I don't want lighting, to be honest with you. And minimal impact to the environment. That's suggestion number one. Again, I'd be very supportive of this project, but I also think that there needs to be more discussion and some things more concrete than what we've seen thus far. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Salinas.
Thank you. And I guess like my colleagues, I too have met with the applicant on, through Zoom, and we did talk about this project. And I also sit on the Economic Development Committee where this project did come to us, and we had, I gave feedback, and I think we all had given the applicant some really good feedback. I thought it was substantive feedback, and the two things that we really sort of hammered on in the Economic Development Committee was one was the environmental impacts, and I think that what we were grappling with was, does the impact on the environment, is it worth this particular model of business, right? And so I know that we sort of went around on that question and on that idea for a while. The second, and I know the second topic that came up, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, because I brought it up, was I think I even expressed it this way. I said, for us to get on board with this, and at least for me to get on board with this really had to be a wow project, right? This is the gateway into our city. I mean, and for so many years, decades, we have been driving over the 92, coming into Hayward, and seeing a building, perhaps historically significant, sure, but not in the very best shape. And we really haven't had a very good gateway coming off of the 92. And I know that we've been up here, we have had some projects that we have been trying to, kind of usher along that will improve the entree into Hayward, and I think we've gotten it right, and I think some of it perhaps we could have done better, or the project could have done better. But my central issues with this particular project, as I'm listening to the comments tonight, and I particularly appreciate Ms. Hy's comment around the environmental impacts. Do the environmental impacts, are they worth, or are the impacts worth the making these impacts? Are they worth with the building the building or building this project? And I don't know if I'm there yet. I don't think that the impact to the environment, with all of the issues that we talked about, sea level rise, the mitigations between the bay and the property, I don't know if they are in a satisfactory way, and I don't think they've made that. Secondly, the wow factor of this building. I just don't see the wow factor. And I did look at the renderings, and even in the staff report, there's some mention in there around the difference between what came to us in the economic development and the renderings that are here before us tonight are slightly, at best, different. And so I'm still, I think about what we can do, what we have the potential to do, and I don't know if this project does it. I know other things that we've talked about in the CDEC and up here is our overall vision for this area, for the industrial sector. And you know, I know the Planning Commission talked about this, and I know we have been pretty firmed up on a vision, and I know that we've looked at other projects through this lens, and that is that we really are looking for, you know, biotech, farm tech, high tech industry where you have perhaps a space, the footprint that this place has, but can yield a lot more jobs. And I would hate for us to lose this opportunity. So I would hate to, you know, compromise on our vision for this area and then ultimately lose this opportunity to put a building or put a company there that could perhaps yield good, high quality, high paying jobs from you know, shovels to in the ground all the way to when the building's built to, you know, researchers and engineers or whatever we, you know, whoever puts in there. And lastly, I'll just say this. I can't, as I was thinking about this job or this particular project, I couldn't help but to think about coming off of the Dumbarton Bridge that we come into Newark. And there's that huge building, the Pacific Research Center. And it's a huge facility. It is it's a tech facility. It's the size of a campus where, you know, it's a multi-level. I mean, I can't imagine how many folks work in that building. I see the parking lot full all the time. And it just looks, like this, you know, great revenue generator for the city of Newark. And I just think that this particular project, I think could, you know, if done right, you know, we can get there. And I think we can do this. So with those points, I'll keep my remarks there. I'd like to, if I may be so bold, to make a motion that we uphold the Planning Commission's ruling and deny the project.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? There is not anyone? Councilmember Wahab, are you trying to speak?
No, not at all, sorry.
Okay, all right. There is a motion, but there is no second. I will go next to Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. So I wanted to also disclose that I met with the applicant several months ago, also via Zoom. So just wanted the public to know that. I wanted to ask if it was possible for Mr. Owen to actually email the video to staff. I know he was having some technical issues, but just wondering if it was sent to staff, as if there was a way we could see that. And if it's not ready to go, it's fine if it takes a couple minutes, someone else can speak after me. But I just feel like it's important visually for us to be able to see that video. And then just wanted to, since we're just doing comments right now, I'm also struggling with this project. Obviously, I could have seconded the motion by Councilmember Salinas, and I did not. I'm just trying to see if there's a way we can get to some of the concerns I'm hearing. So I am looking for a community benefit. And I think one of the ways, I know some of the concerns on the Planning Commission were this isn't going to generate a whole lot of jobs or sales tax in the communities. So just trying to figure out a way that we can possibly get to some of those concerns. I understand Mr. Owen has met with some of the labor groups, but just trying to see, I guess, from our city attorney, What could we do at this juncture to kind of firm that up to see if there's a stronger commitment other than just a word at this point? Don't know if that means we have to table it, but just trying to see how we could firm that up. And the reason why I feel that's important is I do feel that the applicant has taken the feedback from the Economic Development Committee seriously. There's been several modifications, as we heard from staff. Many other applicants have walked away from this project. Although it's historical, it's blighted and ugly and has been for decades. So I'm really just worried about if we're not able to find a workable path for as many people as possible. I just don't want to sit another 5-7 years. We've got a lot of good synergy going on the other side of 92, and it would just be really, really great timing if we could figure out how to bring this all together. So I'm open to hearing other suggestions from my colleagues, but just wanted to see, I'll stop there if staff can share the video from Mr. Owen before we proceed.
Or if not, perhaps Mr. Owen could sort of describe to us what's in the video that he was going to show us. But
Yeah, I actually just sent the video over to Leah. She should be able to pull it up for us.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'm pulling it right now.
Great. Thank you much for doing that.
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up and then I'll share my screen. Okay, so this is the site tour. Hold on one moment. Okay.
There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna hit play. Hopefully the internet works. Okay, hold on one moment.
You might put volume up if there's sound. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So back to, who is next? Councilmember Andrews. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, I'm sorry. I'm going to go to Councilmember Lamnon first, and then I'll come back to you, okay? Okay, Councilmember Lamnon.
Okay. Thank you. I actually would like to hear if the city attorney has any responses to Councilmember Marquez's questions.
If the
city attorney.
Mr. Lawson? What specifically, if you could remind me?
I think the question.
labor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Or who are we going to hear from?
Mayor, I could probably comment on that question. I believe that the question was, what would give staff time to work on some of these issues to maybe address some of these concerns. And I think a motion to continue this item to a date certain would allow staff to have more time to work on some of these community benefits that council's discussing. If that's something council would like staff to do, I would defer to the city manager for what an appropriate date on the future agenda would be to continue that, but that would be a suggestion.
Okay, does that answer? Okay.
Okay.
Great.
And did that
Thank you.
answer your question, Councilmember Marquez, as well?
Yes, thank you for asking for clarification on that. And I guess before we decide where we're going to land, I think it's best that we try to give clear direction to staff, focus on maybe 2 to 3 areas that we would like to firm up. So I was just throwing it out there so I can kind of move the conversation along. I have my own ideas, but I do want to hear from others as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that sort of path forward. And yeah, I'll also refrain from making a motion quite yet for the same reason. But I will add my thoughts to the conversation that, first of all, I appreciate Mayor Pro Tem Wahab raising the Dark Skies Initiative. And this is certainly one of those sites that can benefit from the Dark Skies Initiative. And, you know, at the same time, sort of with respect to my couple of my colleagues' comments, you know, we talk about delays in projects. And so I'm really loath to delay this project. I think there has been a lot of responsiveness. That said, if there was a delay to perhaps our first meeting in January, as I don't expect a ton of things to happen during the holidays in terms of construction, you know, I might be open to that, to work out, is there, you know, has the stormwater risk been totally explored? Probably, but I'd like a little more information about that. The idea of permeable paving, as was raised by the gentleman in the room, and you know, the signage. What does that look like? Maybe it's just on the building is the simplest way to do that, because I don't want us to get caught up in long delays. I'd like to see the project move forward. I think we cannot continue to, I think the risks of continued blight, continued calls for service, continued harm to the shoreline outweigh the potential, no, I think there's just risks there, and I'm not super concerned that this is not a tech company. This is a company that uses technology. This is a company with good paying jobs that is already a Hayward business. And I think the opportunity to have that building look really exciting for Hayward does what people have wanted to do. And I think that if we wanted, I think there would be equal environmental concerns if we had more people in that building. So I think this is a good balance. And but the idea of working out these final ideas around screening, community benefit, maybe some remediation on the shoreline. We've asked a lot of this applicant, finalizing the labor issues. And he's been very responsive, and I appreciate that. So I'd like to not, if we don't approve it tonight, but we can get to an agreement by delaying just a little bit, I could be open to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I actually was going to say a lot of what Councilmember Laminin just said is, I know there's concerns about building out there, but if we were going to put a use like a warehouse, I would figure it would be better to have less occupants in that building, therefore be less occupants that would need to be evacuated if something was to happen. And if the parking lot is being used to mitigate sea level rise, then that's probably one of the better uses if we were to build out there. I do have concerns about building out there in general, but if the use is the use, and this is what was already approved, I think it's something that the applicant, you know, has considered. I do feel that I didn't hear a good answer, or at least I don't know if it was mentioned, but there was a concern about the glass, and I know that is a concern with a lot of buildings, and wanted to know if that was something that could be revisited. And it sounds like you have talked to a lot of labor groups, but with Mr. Munoz calling in, it sounds like there's more work to do. And I also have similar concerns as Mayor Pro Tem Wahab of not necessarily connecting with all the folks in time for this meeting. And so I would consider a delay in order to have a lot of these things resolved. The art piece it's a tricky, the Hayward sign is a tricky issue because it seems like the burden is going to fall on U-Haul to create the image of our city. And I'm a little concerned about putting that type of burden on, for this building. Just what happens in the future in the state of repair. I just feel like we need to really think about how we work with this company in order to do that. And I feel like it's going to get rushed if we are just trying to hurry up and put something that's going to identify Hayward on such a prominent location. So I'm a little concerned about rushing that process. And then I wasn't clear on the community engagement part of that, if that was going to be happening. What are the things that are we going to do to have an outreach to the community? So those are some of the things that I've been thinking about, but I'm definitely concerned about some things still, and would like to hear more for the rest of my colleagues if they have additional things to say about this project. Thanks.
Okay, and next, okay, so now we're on second rounds. So perhaps I'll weigh in a little bit now myself, since I haven't. And I do think this has been a good discussion, and clearly this is a property that is, we all have a great deal of concern about how this is developed because it is the gateway to the city. I have a great concern that it be developed because I have looked at that building for 35, 6, whatever long time I've lived in Hayward, and said, what is that? And why is it left like that there? And it is not, if we are all concerned about the gateway to the city and we take an action that will perpetuate that for who knows how many years to come, I would say that we're not all that concerned about. So I'm glad to hear, Councilmember Salinas, I think you made a lot of good points, but I do think we need to deal with this application. This property is not zoned open space. It is not. It is zoned for industrial use, and the project is within, fits into the parameters of the zoning. So I think we have to, and in fact, I do have a question for Mr. Brick, and that is that if we were to change the zoning on the property because we want to protect the environment, which I appreciate that, but this, we have an edge. If we wanted to protect the environment, we wouldn't have built how many ever houses there are out into the wetlands in Eden Landing. And I realize that was not this council necessarily or the same people, but this is, there is industrial property, and then there are the wetlands. There is the park district owns the rest of the property. So I just want to know, what would the impact for the city be of attempting to somehow change the zoning so that this type of thing could not be built there?
I think we would want to discuss the liability of that in closed session.
You're right. I'm sorry.
There would be impacts there.
Yes, yes. All right. But I'm just pointing out that the project fits the zoning of the property as it is right now. Now, we have every right, though, to weigh in on the details. And I think that's what we're doing. And from what I'm hearing, that is the direction the council would like to go. Perhaps, but I agree with, I can't remember who it was who said it, Councilmember Marquez or Andrews, but that if we are going to do that, we need to be really clear about what we want here tonight so that they can work on that and come back to us on a straight, I think it was Councilmember Andrews there. So, no, it wasn't. She's shaking her head now. It was, never mind. It was one of them. We can go back and look at the tape. It was what? Elisa?
Marquez.
Yeah, okay. Councilmember Marquez, thank you for that good suggestion or that good comment. And I do think we need to be clear. So let's be clear about what we're looking at. For my part, I agree about a wow factor, but I think what I'm seeing now, if what we were seeing in the video there, that was a lot different from the picture. Was that more, I hope that was more like what you saw at Economic Development, the one that was in the video, and I would certainly want staff to hold them to that vision. It doesn't look that bad, and it doesn't look like a building that's screaming, I'm a warehouse holding, a lot of U-Haul pods. But, it is going to be an office headquarters for that company. And U-Haul is, it's a pretty well-known company, and they have been a long-time Hayward business. So I think I'm okay with the architecture. I do like the plan to bring the trail around to the west side so that, the hikers have a more a better view out of the wetlands as they're hiking. As the environmental concerns, I have to trust are being dealt with. I mean, what we're doing on our shoreline is nothing compared to what other communities around the bay have done. We have a shoreline adaptation plan in place. They're doing just what other properties that have built out there have done. The entire Eden Shores development is built on, fill on the land. So they're going to raise the structure. They're probably going to be okay. And if they aren't, this is not a city-owned property, and they're the ones taking that risk on of building in a place that, yes, in we don't know how many years could be underwater. So. I think that the two things I'm looking for, I think the labor piece, I would like to, if you're having discussions, it would be nice if you could come back to us and say that you have some agreement. We all care a lot about that, and we hope that you will utilize the labor from our building trades, and I would like to hear something more concrete than we haven't reached an agreement yet, but we're talking. So that would be one thing I would work on. And then the welcome sign, I think that should be worked. I think that's the city's responsibility, though, actually. If we want a welcome to the city of Hayward sign, that is the responsibility of the city to design and erect that. Now, if we want to ask if there could be some dedication of land for us to put that sign on, and from what I was hearing from Mr. Owen is that they would be willing to do that, I believe. That would be, I would like to hear that, and then I would have our city, I'm not sure what department that would be, but the people, I think our development services department work on. I see that Madam City Manager might want to make a comment about that.
It would probably be our community and media relations team in partnership with development services and economic development. So
okay, but I think within the city resources, we should come up with what we want there. I think what we want from the developer is perhaps we figure out what we actually need for land to do that and ask if they can dedicate that land for us to use. And then finally, I am really interested in preserving the history of this, or in some way preserving the history. I'm glad that you're working with the Historical Society on that, and would like a more concrete proposal about how you're going to do that when it comes back. So those are my comments. So I will now go back to, there were some other, Council Member Zermania.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, all my colleagues. It's very good. Colleague Salinas is right in one respect, the wow factor, but in my mind, there's a semi-wow factor, not as big as a wow factor, but it certainly is a lot better than what we have at the moment there. Unfortunately, we seem to destroy our history. We just lost a house on Depot Road. We destroyed Hayward High School, etc. So we really don't take care very good of our historical places. And of course, this place, this particular structure has been there since even before 1978, before wife and I came to this fine city. So in my mind, a semi-wow is much better than what we have there now. It looks like there will be more trees. I do like the idea of continuing this so that we can see if more trees can be planted, if we can see if the birds could be cliff swallows, because they tend to nest in the city of Hayward, especially at Cheboa and the surrounding areas. The idea of a public art, something that will go, wow, look at that beautiful piece of art. The welcome sign and how it can be done. It's not in concrete yet. I need to see something. I need to feel that it's set. The idea of working with the unions, I want to see something definite. Which unions, what's going to happen, how many local hires are we talking about? That I'd like to see set. And in my mind, 32 acres of open space is excellent. So those are my comments, and I think that my final comment is that we have a property that has given us nothing for quite a few number of years, and now we're going to get some property tax out of it. We're going to get up to 70 employees. Of course, it's not more, but at least 70 is more than anything. And there will be some income tax figures and retail figures. And it will not be the U-Haul yellow that I dislike. So in my mind, we either vote against to override the planning commission's denial, or we continue it. Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if you need a motion or anything like that to continue it
Did you want to make a motion to continue to the?
to a future date. So I'll move
I
to
would
continue.
recommend, if the council wants to
Mayor.
continue it to January 18th. It looks like I was just looking at the tentative agenda. So if we continue it to a date certain, we don't need to renotice the public hearing.
You need a motion for this?
That would be preferable.
Yeah, okay, so I move that we continue this item to the 18th so that our staff and the proponent can get together and come back with a nice set number of plans on the items that we have outlined. Thank you.
Mayor.
Is there a second to that? Okay, seconded by
Mayor,
Council. There are a few council members in line here, so I'm seeing all of you, but we'll get to you, okay? We have a motion on the floor by Council Members Zermano now to continue this till a date to January 18th, seconded by Council Member Salinas. And then I'm gonna, I was gonna go to you next, and then Councilmember Wahab, and then Councilmember Lamnon, and then Councilmember Marquez. Okay, so Councilmember Salinas.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, after, of course, listening to everybody and I have to, this is a tough space, and I know Councilmember Lamnon acknowledges that, and I think we all sort of acknowledge that, and but I also want to acknowledge what Councilmember Marquez brought up, and I'm sure she'll raise this again, is that as long as we're focused, and when we come back on the 18th, and we have, the central areas where it needs to be enhanced, and if I kept track of them correctly, this is what I think I heard. Work out a very clear arrangement with unions, right, from the beginning to the end, right, from the building of the building to perhaps, I'm sure, the Teamsters or groups that will be in the building. Secondly, enhance the outdoor environment. I think I heard community benefit, and if there were enhancements, that's why I seconded it, because I really want to see. I do want to see a wow factor. Maybe it's the sign, maybe it is, dedication of a plot where we can put a sign. And then, the preservation of our history. I think, it'd be great if we, lifted that building and sort of, took it somewhere else, but I don't think that's going to happen. But, have, maybe that's something we incorporate in the sign, right? Where, there's a lot of, creativity is endless, right? The creative license can take us anywhere. So those are sort of the four areas that I heard, and that's why I second this, because what I don't want this to turn into, and I know no one up here wants, is I don't want January 18th say, well, let's take this to February and let's take this to March. Let's decide this in the 18th, and then and let's put a project out there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, Councilmember Wahab.
Thank you. I was willing to make a motion because I know that this was getting a little complicated. My only concern about January 18th being our first meeting of the year is that, one, we're going into holidays, so are a lot of the labor groups. And even in my experience, even right after the 1st of January, there's still a couple of people trickling into holidays and so forth. I'm worried that that's not enough time for substantial conversation. And we all do know that, when we're talking about a CWA, we're not talking about just one group. We're talking about, as he listed, Mr. Owen listed, there are several groups, right? So we do understand how long this takes. So I was considering pushing it to the first meeting in February, number one. And to the point of focusing, one of the things that I do think is important is obviously the environmental aspects. I think that we want to see something a little bit more robust for this particular site, just due to the location and the dedication of this council to our environmental aspects. I think that was one of the big things, at least for me. I also think that we need to require that security be on site, especially because, these are people's valuables and things like that. And if you have it in another site, you can easily do it on this site. And then, one of the things I'm trying to be extremely fair to Mr. Owen as well. I just want to make sure, as he does more penciling and, mapping this out and potentially things like that, I just want to make sure that we can dedicate the fees that are of this year to ensure that they are solid and kind of written in stone for him if we are to approve this in next year, right? So I just want to make sure that, everything is he can do his mapping of what this is going to look like for him and be as fair as possible, because I do believe that he has worked very hard to kind of get this going. And to everybody on council, the fact that this site has been, not the greatest site for a number of decades. So for me, it is definitely just pushing out the conversation a little bit longer, because it is going to take some significant communication with Mr. Owen in several groups. So I would suggest the first week of February, and just including the environmental impacts as literally part of the motion, and security piece as well. If at all possible, the maker and the seconder would be open to that. It would only literally be roughly about 2 more weeks.
Mayor, can I just make a suggestion about
Madam City Manager.
On the date? I would say I'm sure the applicant would like to get his project done sooner rather than later. So what I would suggest is we continue it to the 18th. If it isn't done, we can always continue it. It wouldn't even have to come to the applicant can notify us if he's had the conversations with labor and where he is with that. And then if necessary, we can just post a notice on the council agenda for the 18th that it would get continued to a further date if he's not successful in getting there. But I think the applicant probably is anxious to move forward.
Okay,
So
I'm fine with that, as long as, I didn't think that it, if it needed a formality or something like that. And then just making sure, for me, the points to consider is definitely the environmental piece, the security piece. And again, when we talk about a PLA, it's a full PLA, so as close as we can get to that, if not the entire thing. But again, it's a lot of conversations. To our city manager, in regards to the fees, is there any concern for the applicant?
what fees are?
I think you mean of having another hearing in the at the city council?
Or just even, proposing a different, let's say, slightly different concept, or getting any approvals. I just want to make sure that, we're being as fair as possible to Mr. Owen.
Well, if there's major changes to the building, I mean, he's going to have to accrue, architecture costs and engineering costs on his end. In terms of the staff report, there may be a few more hours of staff time if there's changes to the project, just to do some analysis, but I can't imagine it will be a substantial amount of staff time. I think it's more on the applicant's side in terms of his incurred costs for his team that's working on the design of the project.
Okay.
Any fees for the appeal, though, that we're hearing tonight, the appeal of the planning commission?
That's already been paid, so that
Through
won't, yeah, so the only thing that would be, incurred by the applicant could be some additional staff time for
Okay.
additional analysis if the project changes.
Okay, does that answer you?
Yeah, yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, again, and Mayor, the last point is to your point of history, and that could possibly be around the signage or something like that. So I appreciate it. Those are my comments, and I will support the motion if staff can focus on these couple of items with the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Councilmember Lamnon? No? Oh, okay, all right, took it off. All right, so we have a motion.
Mayor, I had my.
Sorry, Councilmember Marquez.
That's okay. I'll be brief. I know we've been discussing this for a while. So I appreciate everyone's engagement and input and appreciate, I know we haven't heard from the applicant, but hopefully this is giving a little bit more clear direction in terms of what the council wants to see. So I'm just going to speak on, I support the motion. I appreciate the city manager's comments that right now it'll be listed as January 18th. If the applicant needs a little bit more time, that will be the applicant's call. But I agree that I don't want to allow a whole lot more time. I think if we want to make this work, then that onerous is going to be on our labor groups. Yes, it's holiday. We're asking a lot of people, but people can figure out and find time in their schedule to have these important meetings. So hopefully it's a priority and people will do that. So the areas that I want to look at and have information for our next meeting on this application is an update on the labor agreements. Also dedicated land for the signage. I do feel that it should be on the city to design and get community input and figure out how we're going to maintain this sign. It's going to be such a high importance and focal point. So I agree with Councilmember Andrews on that point. And then also just want to make sure that the concerns that were raised in regard to the stormwater issue is also addressed. I am not looking to see any revamping design of the building. I'm not sure why that was mentioned, but I'm not hearing that that's a concern. And I definitely don't want to put additional burdens on the applicant. I think we're already asking them to go above and beyond. So I hope that we can really streamline the focus to those three areas, which is labor, dedicated land for the sign, and addressing the stormwater issue. Thank you.
Okay, and I personally agree with you. I think the applicant, we have to trust that he has heard the discussion. If he has, he is also certainly welcome to contact any of the council members again to discuss this, if he has questions about what they had to say. But let me just ask, Mr. Owen, are you, probably this wasn't the outcome you wanted tonight, but do you understand what we're doing here, and do you have any concerns that you want to express or any thoughts you want to express about it?
Oh, absolutely. I understand everything. I've got my notes on everything, and I'm going to get right to work on it.
Okay, thank you. And with that, if there are no further comments, I think so the motion was to continue the meeting until January 18th, and during which time we would ask the applicant to address the concerns that have been raised by council. Now, that doesn't mean that every single person is going to be totally, the comments they made are going to be totally addressed. But I think he's heard from us and knows where, the direction we're going here and what our largest concerns are. And so hopefully there will be some additional work done. I don't think we need to get too much more specific in the motion, but just that, we want some progress and a further report on the concerns we've expressed. So with that, on this motion that was made by Council Members Armenio and seconded by Councilman Salinas, who to continue this hearing to January 18th to give the applicant time to work with whatever groups he needs to work with to address the concerns that have been expressed at council here. I will ask the city clerk to do a roll call vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Andrews.
Aye.
Councilmember Lamnin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Salinas.
Yes.
Councilmember Wahab.
Yes.
Councilmember Cermeño.
Aye.
Mayor Halliday.
Yes, and the motion carries, I believe, with 7 aye votes, correct? Yeah, okay. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. That was a very good discussion, and we will be taking this up again in about a month or so. So with that, we're going to move on to our, let's see, we're going to move on now to council reports and announcements. Anyone have any?
Sure.
Councilmember Marquez, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to wish everyone a happy holiday season and just want to acknowledge our city managers, city attorney, city clerk, executive team, and all of the employees in the city of Hayward. This has been yet another difficult year with COVID-19 restrictions, and just really want to acknowledge everyone for putting the community needs first and doing everything they can to ensure that the city continues to operate. So just wanted to wish everyone a happy and healthy holiday season, and we'll see you. I guess I'm hearing the next meeting is January 18th. So looking forward to seeing everybody then. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Salinas.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Councilmember Marquez just said. This has been, a tough 23 months or so, and we've done a lot of work up here. Not only have we done a lot of work up here on the dais, but I think our appointeds, we have 3 appointeds: the city attorney, of course, the city clerk, and city manager. They've done some incredible work, in their own disciplines, to say the least. And but much credit goes to our executive team and all of the staff that over the last 23 months have just been doing some extraordinary work. We've connected families to funds. We've connected families to, high quality healthcare. We've connected families to protections in housing. I think we're now in year 2. And, come January, we should be entering a very different world, yet another different world in January. So I just want to wish everyone a happy holiday, Merry Christmas. And, and please, city manager, thank everybody for all of their work over the last, especially over the last couple of years. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Cermeño.
I'm going to wish the audience out there who's Spanish speaking, okay? Es un día muy bueno, fue un año maravilloso. Muchísimas gracias a todos los empleados, a toda la audiencia y residentes de Hayward por ser buenos residentes, limpiar la ciudad y feliz Navidad, felices fiestas y nos vemos en 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you. Also, happy holidays, and I want to give a kudos to all the staff that were involved and all the organizations that were involved for Light Up the Season. I know it was a lot of hard work to put that event on, and thank you for honoring other cultures. And also wanted to thank Eric Pearson, who is in environmental services, who's been making the rounds with community engagement regarding the 100% renewable plan. So thank you for coming out to all the business roundtables and getting the word out of the opt-out option and the changes that are coming ahead. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I will just say, echo the comments of thanking staff for an extraordinary year again of dealing with this pandemic, but a lot of great work has been accomplished this past year, even though we've had to do it in a, with meeting in this electronic manner. I'm glad that some of us are back in council, or that we're having, we even have some members of the public here tonight, which I'm really grateful for. And it's really hard to sit up here and look out at a totally empty chambers. I want to also thank, though, the community itself. We have so many nonprofits in this community that have done extraordinary work also, and much of the time in cooperation with members of our city staff too, to help the people of our community through the pandemic. And I do hope we're getting to the end, but these days you just never know what's going to come around the corner. I think we've all learned a lot about dealing with uncertainty and just coming up with solutions when, things aren't working, or we aren't allowed to do things the normal way. And that's probably going to continue for a while. I do want to thank everybody who came out the other night, including, I think, almost all the council for the Light Up the Season event that was certainly different from the Light Up the Season events we've had in the past. Last year, we really, we had a virtual one that, we did have the City Hall lit. And once again, it is lit with those messages of hope and on the library unity. And that's our message, that we go into 2022 with hope and hopefully with unity as a city together to meet the challenges that we face. And so with that, now we are going to move on to council referrals, and we do have a referral this evening. This referral was put forward by council members Andrews and Wahab, and it relates to guaranteed basic income. And I will ask the two of them, one of them to step up and perhaps, I don't know if you've talked, Councilmember Andrews or Councilmember Wahab, do you want to say anything about this referral?
I can go, Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to thank staff for reviewing this referral. Guarantee-based income is an initiative that we have been seeing across the country, particularly in California, and we have seen a proven success model in City of Stockton, and City of Oakland has identified a fund to tap into for a program there. And there is an initiative right now for mayors across the country to look into this initiative to see how we can support our residents. My priority really is just for staff to look into these initiatives and possibly proceed if there's a fund identified to support our residents. We are seeing rising food insecurities, difficulties keeping up with high rent. We also, we don't want to connect certain things, but people in these situations tend to have to look at alternative ways to make a living. And we want to provide some option to help keep people afloat. And I think the guarantee-based incomes seems to be a positive program that can help support people get back on their feet. And it's also been proven that the funds that are used are for day-to-day things that we all need. And it's not being used for things that people perceive that it would be used for. So just wanted to see if staff can look into this. I actually think it does fit within our strategic plan. And especially in light of the letter from Community Services Commission about equity, I think we should really do something. I mean, we are apologizing, but what are we going to do after the apology? What are we going to do to help all residents in Hayward? And just this is something that I think can help a good number of our residents in Hayward. So just wanted to see if it the staff, if there's an opportunity, we should pursue it for our residents. Thanks.
All right, thanks. Councilmember Wahab, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I appreciate Councilmember Andrews, because this is definitely something that I know she's talked about many, many times. And, to her points, Stockton actually showed that it has been incredibly useful to a lot of the residents. And I want to highlight to our council and the public that the homeless population throughout the region has obviously grown, and we know that. And every single think tank across the country has stated that our homeless senior population in the next decade will triple, primarily because of housing concerns. There are people in, I want to say in the Washington Post or The Economist, I just read an op-ed where a woman stated that she's 75 years old and she's still working because she cannot afford to retire. And I think that in the city of Hayward, we do try really, really hard to work to help our most vulnerable members of society. And to the fact that the CSC has been asking, for different efforts. The Economic Development Committee has also been working to see what can we do with the federal funding that has come in, and how can we ensure that we are creating wealth for families, especially intergenerational wealth. The amount that is being discussed and the fact that this is a pilot just for us to grab the data is not significant. It's about $500 to $1,000, number one. The pilot project in regards to how many people could potentially be, part of that project can vary. It's incredibly flexible of what we want to do, but I think that we do need to kind of give other options a chance. And I think that as we are talking about the funds that are coming in and some of the programs that we have that I'm very excited about, from home ownership opportunities to much more, I think that we also need to kind of figure out how we can help our most vulnerable. So I'm looking forward to hopefully talking about it. And, Councilmember Andrews, if you'd like to make the motion.
I would like to move the item.
I'll second.
Yeah, we do. Okay, I don't know if that was premature, but I'm going to note that the motion has been made and seconded, but I'm going to open public comment on this and to see if we have any members of the public who would want to make a comment. I suppose I should have asked if there were any questions from council, but let's see if there are any members of the public who want to make a comment. I'll open the public comment right now. And I'm not seeing that there are. I don't think we have too many attendees left here. So I'll close public comment and go to council comments or questions of Councilmember Andrews and Wahab on the item. Councilmember Salinas.
Yeah, I appreciate the referral. One of the things I'd like to see as we move forward and, as this sort of, as we move forward in sort of looking at the possibilities that this can happen, can we have, and I don't know if one already exists, I think I've seen some iterations of one, but do we have an inventory list of all of the different, I know you listed some here in your response and staff's response, but can we get an inventory of all of the programs and dollars that we're currently dispersing to, to communities?
Sure. I think a lot of that is, a significant amount of that in the next 3 years is contained through the stimulus package dollars. So we've got a significant chunk of money that's coming there. There are a lot of other programs where we are indirectly giving money. So for example, through our community agency funding process, where money is going to a community agency that is serving the same population base. We have a lot of other programs. So it might take a little bit of time to inventory that, but I think, we have the shallow subsidy program to prevent homelessness. We're looking at a down payment assistance program, looking at a wealth building program. There's a lot of different programs that we're evaluating as part of the stimulus package.
Yeah, and I'm not, of course, I don't want it, tomorrow, but as we walk through this process, and I know, coming up soon, we have our priority, marathon, our marathon meeting coming up. But if we could have, an idea of what is currently going on and what are, sort of an inventory of something. And it doesn't have to be 100%. I'm sure there's a lot of other dollars and stuff kind of tucked away in other places. But anyways, that's what I wanted to see. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lamnon.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate my colleagues' dedication to helping people in need, and at the same time, I'm finding that I cannot support this referral. We have $3.5 million already allocated to our shallow subsidy program and wealth building. So to a certain extent, I think the intent of the referral is already met. The state of California is allocating $35 million to a basic income initiative. So encouraging residents to participate in that is certainly something I think we would do. And the mayor's website, the mayor's initiative that is mentioned in the referral, calls for meaningful systemic change. And fundamentally, universal basic income doesn't do that. It does help people. I'm not arguing that giving people money to meet their expenses doesn't have value. It does. But it doesn't change the fundamental issues of why things are so expensive. And I won't get into the things that I think could do that, but rather than spending energy on figuring out our own program, I'd like to reflect those values in A, the programs that are already happening, and B, perhaps looking at, actually I have a question for city manager. Do you anticipate bringing our legislative priorities? That's the word I was looking for.
It's actually scheduled for January 18th, so
there we go.
So yes, we can, it could be included as part of that.
Yeah, so I think, considering how we support our residents as part of that, and certainly I'd be willing to take another look at universal basic income in light of that, but I think there are probably some fundamental, more upstream things that get to a lasting thing. All of these programs are pilots, and they prove that people need more money. What we also need to deal with is A, why they don't have money to begin with, and why the expenses are so high. So we'll refrain from saying more about that, but with respect and appreciation, I will not be supporting the motion.
Okay, let's see. I'm not seeing any other speakers. Yeah, I appreciate that. It is something I have heard about. I heard the mayor of Stockton actually speak at one of our mayor's conferences in Alameda County, and I know that the city of Oakland, I have great respect for the mayor of the city of Oakland, is proposing a program in Oakland. But I have concerns with the concept, and it's not that I don't want to help people with meeting the needs that they have, and I think we've done a lot in the past, especially in the past 2 years, to do that, and we need to. We have, I mean, we have a lot of stuff, irons in the fire, shall we say, from our Housing and Homelessness Task Force, from some of the community projects that have come up, all of this, the stuff we deal with in our community services agency department with through our block grant and the other funding, especially the funding we're getting from ARPA right now. I mean, we have put a lot of that money to work already in meeting the needs. I do appreciate that, you know, and I did hear the mayor, Stockton, and it does help, you know, for people to just have that extra money for whatever it is they need it for that month, to get them by. And so I think that I will not support this, moving this referral forward so much, but I do support what is in the staff analysis memo, that it be something that could be considered as we are moving through, you know, the decision about, especially with our Community Services Commission. And so I think it could be something we could look at. I mean, my problem is that you cannot possibly do this for everyone. I mean, I just do not know where the money would come from. And it would come, I fear, from other really important programs that we have to address specific concerns such as housing, childcare, you know, food sufficiency, and you know, employment, education, those things that we are trying to put money into. I don't know where the money would come, and we're working on so many things right now that will help people, that you know, it seems like I think the memo actually says prioritize this, and this is not something I would prioritize over many of those other things. So I do appreciate that you brought it forward. It is an idea that's out there. I've heard a lot about it. You know, I wish everybody could have what they need to live on. And I know that we can't always know what it is a family might need this month. We have talked, though, about shallow subsidies that, you know, and if we can explore more how we could have some funding available to help people when they have those urgent needs that they can't meet at the moment, if, you know, on an individual basis, that's a hard thing to set up too. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm more inclined to go along with what the staff is proposing in its staff analysis memo. I think there are some specific things in the referral memo that I'm not sure I'm totally supportive of. So this is a tough one, and I want to say I know it came with the best of intentions, and we may get there, because I don't think we want to drop the idea altogether necessarily, but keep it in the mix. But I don't think this is a program I would prioritize over, you know, the plans we have to help keep people housed. And I would also point out that something I would also, and we have made a commitment to in what we did last month in terms of accepting following through on the Community Services Commission recommendation that we apologize on the behalf of the city for particular harm that was done, and we really called out Russell City, and we know that we have descendants. We have actual people still with us who lived in Russell City, and their offspring who were basically cheated out of the value of their homes through, in some cases, very nefarious means. And so I would, I would like to, and that is in the mix too of what we're looking at right now, is how we will do that. The wealth building, we have talked about how do we provide more home ownership opportunities for people of lower income. So while not totally rejecting the intent behind this referral, I think I'm not going to vote for it as worded here, but do support the staff memo of keeping this idea out there to be discussed as a possibility. I mean, one problem is that if we do something like this, it's only ever, as far as I know, been done as a pilot program with a small group, a subset of the entire population, and to me that's not quite fair, and yet I don't see that we would ever have the funds to just provide that on a universal basis. So that's kind of where I stand. So Councilmember Zermania.
Yes, thank you. So I like the notion. I worry a little bit about money. We have 160,000 people in the city. in just even 1,000 folks who we would help. That's $1 million. I don't want to necessarily move or vote against the notion or the idea, but I want to ensure that the staff's recommendations are taken into account. So, so by voting no, well, that's
Well,
what
I think the staff is hearing what we're saying, that we're
give me a
not.
notion here. I
Well,
like the notion, but
I mean, you could also make a substitute motion to,
Ah, okay.
that's another option for the
Good
council.
suggestion.
If the motion fails,
Okay.
someone else could make a different motion.
it shows that our two colleagues have heart, because in Hayward we have heart, and we're trying to do the most that we can. But the staff's report does a better job of it. So I will vote no, and then I'll probably will move on a substitute motion. Thank you. If it fails, if it goes on, then it goes on. Thank you.
Hearing the discussion, do the makers of the motion still want us to vote on the motion, or would you consider modification or along the lines of what Councilmember Zermeño was and a couple of the rest of us have been talking about?
I would consider it a modification, but I'm curious to hear what Councilmember Marquez would say, and then I have some clarifications that I need to make.
Yes, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't, yeah, Councilmember Marquez, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So I want to first thank my colleagues, Council Members Andrews and Wahab, for bringing this referral forward. There's 6 components to this referral, and I think they did a very thoughtful job in trying to include comprehensive approach on this topic. There's a lot of information. Some of this is new to a lot of people. So I would like to see us adopt the referral as is, because the referral is just moving the analysis further. And there are parts of the referral, specifically, like Councilmember Lamnin mentioned, the legislative priorities, like a lot of things that have been brought up. There are components of that within the referral. So I think if we move it forward, all we're doing at this juncture is continuing the conversation. This has come up in CSC. What was mentioned earlier, yes, we issued an apology, but that apology really doesn't carry a lot of weight if we're not willing to back it up with a policy decision. That policy decision has not been made yet. That needs to be vetted. I don't have enough information at this point. I'd really, really like to know more. Some of the other cities that have been successful, was it through a foundation? Was it through companies? I want to know where that source of money is, because if there's synergy and partnership there and we can leverage resources, then I definitely want to see our low income residents, particularly those that are descendants of Russell City. I think this is an actionable way for us to get to some of those equity issues. So I think we might be getting in the weeds of the details. People are feeling like we're going to approve everything tonight, and we're not. Approving the referral is just continuing the conversation, and I hope that we can do that.
Mayor, can I ask a clarifying question? Because I actually, the only line in here that gives me heartburn is directing staff to prioritize the program and find potential sources of funding. Because basically, if you, as I read the referral, if you accept it, you're basically telling staff to go start researching this program and finding funding sources, and that's going to require us to take some other things off the plate. So, the other items, I think those can be researched further. That's just my concern, is that first bullet point, because it's basically saying, please go do this right now, versus maybe wrapping, like what we had suggested was if we included in an analysis of our other wealth building programs and it's part of that evaluation, it gives us time to do it in the context of the other programs we're putting together. So I just wanted to share that's the one bullet that causes me heartburn in the referral in terms of staff capacity and workload.
Okay. Councilmember Andrews.
Yes. So one clarifying point that I just want to make is that with the reason why I included the Oakland Resilient Families is that it did include private donors, and it's a $6.75 million dollar fund for families. So I just want to dispel some of that, some of the comments of me seeking the city of Hayward covering 167,000 residents. That's not my intent. My intent is if there's partners or venture firms that are wanting to give back and they have a fund to do so, that we should tap into that. I do understand that there's a concern about prioritization. I know everyone's plate is full. I'm also trying to capitalize on what is happening in the country of wanting to make amends. And I do feel like it could be part of the wealth building program. I put prioritizing the referral so there is a sense of urgency and not for this analysis not to get lost. I do think it's part of wealth building. I do understand some of the other initiatives are really important. I still want to consider them, including the House, point of making an attempt for us to create wealth building through home ownership, but people can't own a home if they can't pay rent. So I just wanted something that, we can do something immediately or as soon as possible. And if that's through the wealth building research, that's fine, but I just wanted to see if there's a firm timeline of that. I know it takes time to research and analyze and implement. I know I understand it will take a while, but we do have some programs out there that are examples who have done that work for us. So maybe we can connect with them on the research they have done so far. So that's all I meant by prioritization.
But okay, it wasn't interpreted that way, I think, by some of us. Councilmember Wahab?
Thank you. I appreciate the dialogue. It's interesting. Referrals again are just concepts and ideas that we need to kind of take a look at, especially if we are trying to push the city forward and be an innovator and a leader, right? That's definitely something that I have consistently wanted the city to do. Also, the mere fact that we have done a lot on. For example, we talked about the Hayward shoreline. We've done a lot on even a lot of the work that we've done to clean up our rent stabilization ordinance and things like that. A lot of the initiatives that, I'm very passionate about is trying to reduce extreme economic inequality. And to Councilmember Andrews' point, it statistically on data, quantitative and qualitative data, cities like Stockton that are somewhat similar to Hayward in regards to size and some of the need, they picked 125 people, so not 1,000 people, not 500,000 people or anything like that, but just 125 people that they covered for 24 months at $500, right? And again, this is longevity. To Councilmember Andrews' point, yes, the concept of apologizing for Russell City with no action, we've already received emails in regards to that people would like to see more. And for me, I'd even like to go further to protect our most vulnerable, which in my opinion is the greatest person that, that could potentially need this type of program. And to our city manager's point, I agree. I think when we talk about prioritizing, that's just when we write up referrals, that's just the language we use to make this as something that we want to do. It is a project, it's an initiative. I do think it fits very well into the economic development plans of what we have to do, as well as the Homeless and Housing Task Force. This is an anti-poverty tool. And we have been having complaints about the growing population of homeless people, the growing poverty, the joblessness, things like that. And as I mentioned in a previous meeting, that when we talk about the Great Recession, it started in 2008. The impact was felt really in 2011, my family included. And as we talk about COVID, we're most likely going to face the impact in a year from now. So I think that starting this and doing the analysis is great. I do hope that my colleagues at least, take a look at some of the consideration. There is also other groups, to Councilmember Andrews' point, that have been investing $10 million in local cities trying to get these types of programs up off the ground, right? Again, it is that safety net for our most vulnerable population. So I will be supporting this, and I hope that others consider this as well. And we can work on the details. That is never the referral is literally just the concept and the idea. The details we can discuss, and I'm sure Councilmember Andrews and I are more than open to it as always.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Salinas.
Yeah. So, I think, everything council members Wahab and, and Andrews are saying, absolutely. Yes. You won't get any disagreements here. Any of us, I don't think anyone in the city of Hayward, would disagree with them. And I think that, when I had a conversation with Councilmember Andrews the other day about this, the way I understood this was that this would be one program option on the table, so that in the event that we do get someone like in Oakland, or we do get someone like in Stockton, who would step up and say, hey, we're willing to, apply funding to a UBI, then we can certainly say, oh, well, we have a UBI program concept that is supported by council, and we can certainly plug this into that opportunity. And so that's how I understood this. And I had some, heartburn with, that same sentence, direct staff to prioritize, because the reason why I wanted us to inventory everything, because everything on that inventory is a priority. I mean, I don't think, everything that we are doing to meet every dollar that we are connecting families to, whether it's through ARP, whether it's through the state emergency funding, whether it's through City of Hayward emergency funding, whether it's through everything, it is a priority, And so, anyways, my, what I was going to recommend to my colleagues, Andrews and Wahab, is if they wanted to get a 7-0 vote on this, take out on bullet 1, direct staff to prioritize A, just take that out and say research a guaranteed basic income program. And then, and find potential sources. Or we can say, and if potential sources for funding, are available, then connect this program to that, or something like that. But I think, that first, that first bullet, I think, is causing a little bit of heartburn. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lamnon.
Thank you. So what I'm struggling with is, we said as a council, we would pay attention to our allocation of staff resources. Is only so much time. There is only so much, there's only so much time. And so I appreciate Councilmember Salinas' acknowledgement that there's this heartburn as the city manager said, in item 1, and nothing happens by magic. So either a referral is a statement of agreement. We believe that it is not okay that people do not have the income they need to meet their basic expenses, and that the city should do everything in its power to ameliorate these situations. It's a statement of fundamental belief. We do these all the time. It's probably pretty consistent with what we do. And if that's the intent of the referral, then I suggest the authors, my esteemed colleagues, work on that and bring that back. If the intent is actually to direct staff, because, Oakland Mayor Sheff worked with folks to bring in that $6 million, and now their city staff is figuring out how to get it out into the community. If we research, unless the council is dedicating itself to do that research, it doesn't happen. other than city staff. And what we've heard loud and clear is that we must be careful. We have asked for things, and frankly, we have asked for UBI. That's part of why we have a shallow subsidy program. So that's already happening. We know we have to talk about reparations, and we have some actions attached to the apology, and we all said we know it doesn't go far enough yet, and I hope that is a robust part of our strategic planning. I already know it's part of our wealth building conversation. That's why they're not here yet, because we have to have those conversations. And so I ask us to, if we vote yes for something, that we're really clear. Are we directing staff, or are we making a statement of policy? And that what the motion does reflects whichever of those is actually on the table. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Armeno.
Good point, colleagues. Lamnan. I will vote for this if the referral says or takes out prioritize, any reference to 500 or 1,000, and then timeline before 1023. We have shown that Hayward has heart because all the activities, as colleague Salinas has requested a list of what we actually do for our community, those who are need help. So like I said, I like the notion, I like the idea, but prioritizing to me is not necessary. And then also the figures. So at the moment it's a no, unless my two colleagues, Wahab and Andrews, can take that friendly amendment. Thank you.
Okay. No. Okay. Here we are. I haven't heard that they are willing to change the wording of their referral. I cannot support it the way it is because I truly have problems with the concept, and yet I could see supporting a type of program that provided that kind of an additional supplemental to the income for specific purposes. Even perhaps that will be the concept that we come up with as far as reparations for specifically the Russell City community. I think there was real property, there was real theft of property in that case that happened back then. And so perhaps that's a way. I mean, but a universal, I mean, a basic universal income program. It isn't universal. It isn't something we can do for everybody. There will have to be a subset of people. How do we select that subset? And then we will not have, unlimited, resources to provide this forever. Stockton didn't even have that. It ends. What happens when it ends? And there's just so much need in other areas to specifically support affordable housing and workforce development, chance, education to, there are plenty of jobs available right now. There are going to be jobs, there are important jobs that should be well paying in the future if people have the education and skills to take those jobs. All of those areas, childcare. I could see a child care subsidy because that is so important. And we're looking at all of those things, I think. So it's not, and I would certainly echo the statement that I know that the two council members who brought this forward have a lot of heart and a lot of concern for people and truly want to help. I think we all want to do that. I think this particular idea is sort of it's come up as this, a lot due to the mayor of Stockton, who is an engaging speaker and, had an idea and tried it. It was a limited time pilot program. I wonder if they've gone back and looked at, well, what happened when it ended? What happened to the people who had it? So, I think it should be a concept that is in the mix as we look at a lot of the programs that we're working on now. And so I am glad that you brought it forward because I think is an idea that maybe can be discussed in connection with other things that we are trying to do that we have already got on our plate to try to address. I'm not going to support this referral, but we'll see where it goes. And with that, yeah, I do see. Councilmember Andrews, go ahead.
I thought bringing reparations was going to be controversial. Didn't think it was going to be this. If staff had heartburn with the language, I would have been more than welcome to revisit this referral if it was going to cause heartburn with saying prioritize or direct. So just want to I'm used to using those words in my work, so I brought it here. So if there's any concerns like that in the future, please let me know ahead of time and I can revisit the language. But as far as what happened with that pilot program, people got food that month and they paid their rent that month. Landlords got money that month for their rent. And I think that we were definitely willing to help businesses with grants to keep them afloat, and just figure we might want to do something similar with this referral, just looking at what other cities are doing with funds. This is an opportunity for businesses to give back to the community that they're impacting with them locating in the Bay Area, and the housing prices are going up, rent's going up, and this is an opportunity to give back to the community that they're impacting. And I know there are other programs out there, but one of the things I could tell you this is that when I talk to someone I know who is a family friend about what do they think about it, they said, sign me up, because these other programs, it's too complicated. I can't figure it out. I don't know where to go for assistance. And I think sometimes it's about looking at different ways to help people impact their lives. And I just saw what other cities are doing. I thought this referral was something that actually wasn't going to be that controversial. And I thought it was something that was already part of our strategic plan if we were looking into wealth building. And I'm fine with lumping it into that research, but to hear this concern of a flat out no, to hear a flat out no because of concerns that everybody would want it, we should be asking, why do we think people need it? If that many people if you're concerned that more people are going to ask for these programs, that shows you the need for the program. So just something to think about. But I'm fine with making any friendly amendments, and if the research gets done, and if there's a possibility of us tapping into a fund, then however you want to phrase it in order for us to research it, I'm fine.
I have wording if you want to hear.
Okay, I just want to, did you just not take your hand down, or do you have it up again? No, I just didn't. Okay, so Councilmember Zermeño.
My suggestion is direct staff to research a guaranteed basic program, basic income program, and find potential sources of funding.
Councilmember Andrews, are you okay with that amendment that he stated for that one line?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, I'd be fine with that amendment as well. Again, the language is something. Again, the referrals are just the ideas. Again, we can delete and add concepts to it. But I also want to make it very, very clear, because I think some of this was stated and it was not accurate. It's $500 to $1,000, not people. Number one. $500 was selected for Stockton. And the outcomes of it, of being able to help people even for a short period of time, was the things that we talked about, whether it was housing, childcare, and so much more. The cash helped people find full-time employment. And yes, we have jobs, but if they can't pay for childcare, to do the interviews, to go on site, to get the job, that's problematic. The length also helps them accrue enough money to start to hire the childcare provider and so forth. Also helped with depression, homelessness, crime, which we are all very, concerned about. So for me, I think that this is, again, something that we need to discuss. There is a difference between UBI, GBI, and even CI that was also listed in the referral. And I think that council needs more information and not just, the mayor here. There are affluent cities like the city of Fremont, who's also looking into this because of the mere concern around homelessness and their lowest income. The thing around housing that we constantly say is produce, protect, and preserve. This will preserve the residents that have been lifelong residents in Hayward, senior populations, low-income individuals, teachers. How they sign up, we can discuss that and take the best approach. So there's a lot there, yes, that's unknown, but this referral is to give us data and information of how things are conducted and what works best for our city and our residents. I will continue to support this.
Okay, that, I understand what you're saying, and there's some merit, but I think when, also, what a referral does is it says, take your attention away from these other things that we're doing and that we're trying, that we have going and, have come up and are vetting their way through the process, and switch your attention to this particular thing. And our staff has limited time and we have limited resources. But I'm not opposed to the idea of including this idea in the whole mix of how we are trying to help people. And maybe this is what for a certain segment of the population, I do understand that this could be very helpful, but you can't, I don't know that we would find the means to do it for everybody who needed it. I don't know. I mean, there are so many elements, and if you're going to design a program, that takes a lot of work and a lot of detail. If you're not going to...
Absolutely correct, but it's a pilot. So just like everything else, we're going to learn from this. That's the whole
yes, but we have taken on a lot of work. So maybe, but I see it being in the mix here of some of the work that we have set out. Specifically, I think the reparations idea, when we're looking at reparations, that really could be something that we could use in that case. But then also the shallow subsidies, but not just limited to housing, perhaps. And then, the whole, I understand that, it's, you don't want to create a bureaucratic nightmare for the people that you're trying to help. So I think that's part of what we all have to consider too when we're designing. So maybe you come back with something that does fit this. So I don't know how we meld the staff response with Councilmember Lamnon may have a suggestion on that. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
I'll take a stab at it and see if this works for Councilmembers Andrews and Mayor Pro Tem Wahab, and if this is where you're trying to get to. So I wonder, and I'm going to try and say this clearly, but writing on the fly is always a little tricky. So I'm going to say it and then I can go back and forth if need be. But if we take out the first bullet point and I think the last bullet point, which are the ones that are directives specifically to staff on a timeline, and instead have language about incorporating best practices regarding basic income into upcoming strategic planning, shallow subsidy, and wealth building programs, and you can add in and other relevant formats if that's helpful. And then that we also sort of expand your comment about advocacy to position the city to include this topic in our upcoming legislative update, as well as positioning the city to leverage available state and this is where I ran out of time, venture capital, sorry, that's the word I was looking for, and venture capital fundings, because to benefit our residents. Where I'm trying to get to is I appreciate the idea that people are looking at this and there could be money available for our residents, which, if I heard you right, I think was where you were coming from, Councilmember Andrews. And I also concur that that folks are hurting and they know the best place to use their funds, so, and that there is high need. I think there are more upstream approaches to get to solving the problems for the longer term, but that's not what we're talking about today. So I'm not adding anything about that to this referral. But I'm trying to pull out the moving staff resources today and leveraging what's already in play, but making sure that we're remembering basic income best practices in that. And in so doing, we may create opportunities for this to happen in the city beyond what is already in play at both the city and the state level. That was a lot, and I'll stop there, and I'm happy to clarify if that's helpful.
Madam City Manager, do you have any thoughts about what I think you're hearing what we're saying, that we're not, we are supportive.
I think I've heard consensus that you want us to research it as part of the wealth building. That's at least from a majority of the council. Just because I have to do this, because I just was curious. So I just kind of looked, and we have 13,100 people below the poverty line in Hayward. So that would cost us at $500 a month, $6.5 million a month. So just to put a magnitude of the problem that we're facing in terms of affordability. So I just want to be realistic about kind of all of these programs and what we're actually going to be able to do and how many people we're going to be able to impact. So I just had to be a little bit of, say that today. But I just so everyone has a realistic expectation of what we might be able to accomplish. That being said,
the pilot does cover only 125 people in previous studies, so it's not 13,000 people. This is a pilot, small segment.
I'm just saying that's the magnitude of the problem in our community. So I just want everyone to understand that it's a big issue, and so. I think we've got I think the lobbying at the state and federal level for additional funding is huge. Sort of identifying all of the programs that are available and creating resources. So, I think if everyone's comfortable just saying we'd like to research this topic further in the context of the wealth building program, that's probably all that needs to be said, and that's in fiscal year 23 and 24 in the strategic roadmap. So it's coming up because we're using our stimulus dollars to help build that program. And then, obviously, if there's outside funding that's available, that research could identify that as well.
That's fine.
Does anybody disagree with that approach? And I think that approach is more along the lines of what's in the staff response memo. People talked about bullet points, but they're actually numbered. They're not bullet points. Why is there? But so I think it was like take out 1 and 6. I almost think we should do what we just did with the last element and say, well, okay, you heard us, come back with something. But I also just think that we have expressed that it's an interesting idea. We thank you for bringing it to us. And we want to keep it in our minds as part of the overall work we are doing to address poverty and individual problems people are having in keeping up with basic expenses, and try to find the best way to do that. This might be one approach that could work for some people. We're not going to be able to do it for everybody, or even offer it to everybody. I don't even, there are ways you select, there are lotteries, but I think I'm just supportive of the approach that the city manager has taken to say, let's keep this in the mix of ideas as we move forward. And we can talk more about this at the strategic roadmap when we have the strategic roadmap session, and maybe they'll have some additional ideas. Everybody will have some additional ideas by then. And maybe rather than have a vote on this referral tonight, let's give it a little time as we since we do seem very, in some ways, very divided on council, but I think also very united in wanting to do the best we can to help the people in our community. And this is an idea. I have to say that it's an idea that I did not like initially, but I am I am learning, as I learn more and listen to you guys, especially tonight, who I do respect, I think that in some way there could be some merit to trying to some extent. It's just that I worry you cannot help everybody, and yet there we are. We can't help everybody, but I think of the specific needs, and I think of and what we're trying to do in our community to provide those basic needs. And if we have money, that's where we need to direct it. But it may be that there'll be some benefactor, and we could try it. And I would be open to that if there were truly a source of income and a way we could do it in a fair manner. I don't know that the wording of this referral gets there. So what if we just leave this discussion as it is and perhaps come back to this when we have the strategic roadmap?
There's a motion on the floor, Mayor. There's a motion on the floor.
There is a motion on the floor. Okay, we can go ahead with that. Let us go ahead. The motion to move this referral as is forward, made by Councilmember Andrews and what? I'm sorry.
We adopted Councilmember Zermeño's amendment for that bullet about prioritize. It's more in line with what our city manager kind of stated. So that is the motion that's on the floor.
Do you have a substitute motion? Oh, I'm not quite sure what that substitute was.
It was my amendment, my friendly amendment was to redo number 1 to simply state.
I'm not, yeah.
Their first bullet, to take out the word, the number 1, to state simply, direct staff to research a guaranteed basic income program and find potential sources of funding. In my mind, that took away the prioritizing, it took away the timeline, and it gives some direction to research it and to see if there are any funds out there. Now, also then, colleague Lambden came up with other language, and I think also colleague Salinas has a couple other ideas. So it may be time to just simply continue or vote no on it and say, come back later.
Yes.
And with all due respect to my colleague, Councilmember Zermeño, perhaps.
We can't hear.
Oh, talking near your microphone.
Sorry, I apologize. With all due respect to my colleague, Councilmember Zermeño, I think what the city manager just articulated, and it sounded like Councilmember Andrews was and Councilmember Wahab were in consensus. Why don't we let them make the motion per the city manager's request, so then therefore we can just give it an up or down vote that's clean, and then they can withdraw their motion, and then we vote on what was just articulated.
By the city manager?
Yes, because that seems to be what we all are in consensus.
Would you be in agreement with that?
I withdraw my motion.
Okay.
I kind of just want to hear what the city manager
Yes, let's
said in a
hear.
concise way again.
Let's hear from.
I mean, I think what I said was that it would be, we could, incorporating the different policy points and research items in the referral memo, and then research guaranteed basic income programs as part of the wealth building suite of programs we're evaluating. And that is happening as part of, along with the community outreach process that we're planning for that work. And that is happening in fiscal year 23 and 24 with the stimulus dollars. So we could incorporate this research into that as part of the community engagement, as part of the staff research, but it just wouldn't take precedence over those other programs.
Is that acceptable?
And it's fine with me.
Councilmember Andrews and Councilmember Wahab?
Yes. I kind of feel like Councilmember Andrews said yes.
She did.
Yeah, no, but the way she said it, right? I'm fine with that. And again, I think that the 6-month time frame that we also had was sufficient. But I'm fine with that if that, eases the heartburn and, is the antacid to your heartburn. So.
All right, let's take a stab at voting on that. No?
I heard 6 months timeframe. No.
No, I referenced the original one. It's
Fiscal
whatever
year
our city
23
manager said.
I don't even
Don't
see
worry
that.
about it. Don't worry about that part.
Councilmember Andrews, you make
Fiscal
that
year
motion,
23 starts in 6 months, so that's,
right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's prioritizing 6 months, and that's not what we're here for.
Councilmember Andrews, you make that motion that the city manager kind of referenced, right?
Yes, I move the item as.
right. Madam City Clerk,
manager
do you think you have that? Or
And I
we'll be able to
second.
get it up? Okay. All right, we're going to, and you're also in agreement, Councilmember Wahab? Oh, you disappeared.
Yes.
There, okay. Then we're going to vote on that motion, and hopefully it will be captured with, by the city clerk with the assistance of the city manager, and when it comes back in the minutes, we will see, yes, that is what we wanted to do. I want to thank the two of you. It's been an interesting discussion. I think we can't just move from all that we have been working on to prioritize some new idea that I think a lot of us have a lot of valid concerns about, but also that could be an idea that works in some ways for our community. So that's my interpretation of what we're doing here. And with that, I'm going to call for the vote on this motion and move this item along.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Andrews.
Aye.
Councilmember Lamnin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Salinas.
Yes.
Councilmember Wahab.
Yes.
Councilmember Cermeño.
All right.
Mayor Halliday.
Yes. Wow, that was good. We agree on, I hope we know what we agree on, but we did agree. So the motion carries with 7 aye votes, and we will proceed with keeping this in our sights as an idea to consider and look for support for. All right. So that brings us now, I believe, to, yes, our adjournment. And this being the last meeting of the month, and in fact, also the last meeting of the year, we do sadly have some adjournments this evening, 3 of them. And so tonight, we're going to be adjourning in honor and memory of Kevin Nishida, Rob Warren, and Jean Rapp. Kevin Nishida was, I think we've all read a lot in the news in the past couple of weeks. He's very sadly, he is a former Hayward police officer and former police officer in a number of, or a few other cities, who was actually working as a security person for a TV news crew when he was attacked and killed on November 24th. And, while he was doing that job, he worked in the Hayward Police Department starting in 1995, from then until 2001, and worked as a patrol officer, undercover operations, and as a detective in the investigations unit. I know that the entire law enforcement community, including members of our own Hayward Police Department, helped to, participated in his memorial service, and so our hearts go out to him. Rob Warren is someone who was a descendant of 2 families who basically helped settle California, and in particular this area, the Guerin family and the Warren family. And so he's a 5th generation Castro Valley, Hayward area resident. He particularly contributed to Hayward, I think, by serving as a board member and past president of the Hayward Area Historical Society. And he also has helped law enforcement, people like the family of Officer Nishida, through his membership and participation on the Alameda County 100 Club Board of Directors. He did many other things. He was actually a longtime board member of the Eden Medical Center Foundation Board and helped, promote healthcare in our area. And so he sadly passed away. I'm not even sure exactly when that happened, in November, I believe. And then finally, Jean Rapp, who I knew as the owner of the St. Regis Rehabilitation Center, right in the heart of our downtown. And I don't know a lot else, but certainly in that capacity, he helped a lot of elderly and disabled people have, a more comfortable life. And I'm going to ask Councilmember Salinas. I think he might have a few remarks too.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, Gene Rapp was, he was a local businessman. He, he bought the St. Regis in 1976. And, he, not only was he a businessman, but he was a local realtor, he was a developer, and, just a long-time business owner in the city of Hayward. And, he, really took a keen interest in Hayward seniors and, just really provided a community for them. And so it's, it's just really sad to see that he's no longer with us. And and I'm sure the city manager will work with his family, and I'll forward you all the information to St. Regis to connect with them. And then also I just wanted to make a comment about Rob Warren. I was friends with Rob, and he was a good guy. I mean, he was a long time. Of course, he was from Hayward, lived in Castro Valley. He was heavily engaged in all things Hayward and Hayward area. He was a long-time board member at the Rowell Ranch Rodeo. He did everything from rodeo to historical society to health boards, and so he was just a great guy who was involved and really personified the statement, leadership through service to others. So he will be greatly missed. And so thank you.
Okay,
oh, and also I did get word that a friend of the Warrens and a friend of the city is willing to donate the tree once we find a place for it. So. So I would ask the city staff to work with families and perhaps also with Councilmember Salinas to connect those people so that we can see if we can plant a tree somewhere in Hayward in honor and memory of each of these people. And so in honor and memory of Kevin Nishida, Rob Warren, and Jean Rapp, and with wishes to everyone in Hayward, on behalf of, on behalf of my colleagues on the City Council, for a happy and safe holiday season during this time that we're living in, where we all have to be even more careful than we usually have to be. Like usually it's just don't drink and drive, but this time it's wear your mask, get vaccinated if you haven't been, and take care of yourselves, but still enjoy the holiday and the spirit of the holiday. And so until January 18th, we are adjourned.
Merry Christmas, guys.
Sorry.